Chapter 111. Let's test your eyesight. Who do you think will win in the end? Hearing Lin Feng's question, Xiao Yin and Wang Lin looked at each other. The battle is ever-changing. Even a small change can affect the final outcome. Xiao Yin had a stalk of grass in his mouth, his hands behind his head as a pillow, saying with a smile, but second junior brother miscalculated this time. Fighting close combat with little junior brother is completely using your own weakness to attack the enemy's strong point. Wang Lin frowned. Something's wrong. Xiao Yin was stunned. What's wrong? Wang Lin frowned and thought hard. I don't know either, but I feel that something is wrong. With his reminder, Xiao Yin also calmed down and observed. He was an extremely smart person, but he was naturally careless. Now that he observed carefully, he immediately found a problem. Second junior brother is too calm and composed. Xiao Yin murmured. Lin Feng smiled and said lightly, the outcome has been decided, but it's not the difference in cultivation or the strength of magical arts that determines the outcome. Xiao Yin and Wang Lin were both shocked. They stared at the battlefield at the foot of the mountain, not daring to neglect a single moment. Zhu Yi's sword of change kept reorganizing the 8 trigrams, and all kinds of sword moves emerged one after another, each with their own magical effects. During the process of fighting with Tiny Tot, Zhu Yi's understanding of sword of change became deeper and deeper, and there were many changes that he had never thought of before. Tiny Tot's control of the power of wind and thunder became more and more free. No matter how Zhu Yi used thousands of sword Dao and tens of thousands of wondrous techniques, the little guy was like a majestic wind and lightning smashing over, chasing behind Zhu Yi without letting up. As long as he was given a chance to get close, Zhu Yi would definitely lose given the difference in physical strength between the two. Zhu Yi obviously realized this too, so he kept trying to pull away from Tiny Tot. Both sides chased each other, and Tiny Tot gradually lost his patience. His cute little face wrinkled like a bun. Yeah, Xiao Budian abruptly added the boundless wind and lightning to his body, and his speed once again increased by a level. He left behind an afterimage where he stood, and with a speed that was close to teleportation, he arrived in front of Zhu Yi. After hiding for a long time, in the end, Xiao Budian still managed to get close to him, but Zhu Yi was not dejected or disappointed. There was even a faint smile on his face. Just can't last long. When the moon is full, it's gone. Zhu Yi smiled faintly. Little junior brother, your aura has already reached its peak with that movement just now. It will inevitably go downhill from now on. Your infinite wind and thunder can indeed increase its power infinitely, but the premise is that you can't use it on yourself, even if your physical body is extremely strong. The wind and thunder are limitless, but there is a limit to what your body can endure. Zhu Yi's eyes shone with the brilliance of wisdom, and the power that I have been accumulating for a long time is just about to explode. Zhu Yi swung his sword. It was the earth sword. He first sealed Tiny Tot outside, and then he used the fire sword. A wave of blazing energy was not released, but it was continuously accumulating and compressing. There is a divination of fire underground. Ming Yi. The meaning of Ming Yi was that fire was underground, just like magma was hidden underground, and it was full of vitality. Tiny Tot secretly thought that things were not good, and Zhu Yi's sword had already brazenly exploded. Kuan Li changed positions, fire above the earth below. Wildfire started a prairie fire, and it could not be stopped. Tiny Tot's entire body surged with wind and lightning, and blocked Zhu Yi's sword power of the fire underground Ming Yi divination. However, his entire body was at a disadvantage, and he was knocked flying. Second senior brother is too cunning. Tiny Tot landed on the ground and said angrily, others can say that about me, but you can't. In terms of cunning, under Master, who can compare to you? Zhu Yi smiled slightly. I'm just helping you gain experience today. In the future, when you meet a real enemy and use the same method to deal with you, you won't be fooled again. Tiny Tot was also straightforward, and he snorted, today, I lost by one move. Next time I won't be so impatient. On the mountain, Xiao Yin and Wang Lin both let out a long breath, and, at the same time bowed to Lin Feng. As Master said, in terms of cultivation level, magic power, junior brother is not at a disadvantage. But in terms of state of mind, he is slightly inferior. Lin Feng shook his head and smiled. A 5-year-old kid, no matter how early he matures, he can't compare to a 16-year-old in terms of patience. He rushed down the mountain and said, "Tiny Tot, come back and rest first," and summarized the shortcomings from the previous battle. Then he turned to look at Xiao Yin and Wang Lin. "Who is interested in sparring with Zhu Yi again?" Wang Lin smiled. "I am no match for second senior brother." Xiao Yin was a little eager. "Let me try second junior brother sort of change." Lin Feng nodded, and Xiao Yin immediately jumped down the mountain, replaced Tiny Tot, and came in front of Zhu Yi. "Second junior brother, I am the same as little junior brother. We both want to fight close combat with you. Don't blame me for making the first move." Xiao Yin chuckled, spat out the grass stem in his mouth, and with a flash, he already pounced towards Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi's eyes flickered, and he smiled. "Eldest senior brother, just bring it on." He did not hold back, and with a swing of his long sword, he launched 2 consecutive sword strikes. Thunder in the sky, strong. A gentleman does not wear shoes without manners. Zhu Yi used the Thunder Sword and the Heaven Sword to form the strong sword momentum of the Sword of Change. The thunder shook in the sky, and its momentum was strong. The vast and vigorous sword chi slashed down towards Xiao Yan's head. Good timing. As Xiao Yan laughed, he punched out. Layers of tremors and destruction power spread out. It was the divine power of the 8 trigrams of the Great Way Scripture of the heavens. 8 trigrams collapse. When Zhu Yi's majestic sword chi came into contact with Xiao Yan's 8 trigrams collapse, it instantly disintegrated and was on the verge of collapse. Thunder roams the world. All things are undeserved. Zhu Yi's expression did not change, and the sword momentum that was on the verge of collapse suddenly changed. The Thunder Sword and Heaven Sword switched, and immediately, the strong sword momentum of the thunder in the sky changed into the undeserved sword momentum of the thunder in the world. Thunder roams the world. All things are undeserved. The former king used the time to nurture all things. Zhu Yi's sword of change changed agilely and immediately came back to life. He once again faced Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan laughed. "It's useless." As he said that, he punched out again, and the 8 trigrams collapse was activated again. The domineering power completely destroyed Zhu Yi's undeserved sword momentum. Zhu Yi came to a realization. I get it now. The core concept of eldest senior brother's technique is destruction and destruction. It's a domineering power that can even destroy all things, the universe, and the universe. My sword of changes transforms into all phenomena in the world. It is the power of construction and creation. However, since ancient times, it has always been easier to destroy than to build. My sword of changes against his 8 trigrams disintegration is like a scholar meeting a soldier. At the thought of this, Zhu Yi was not discouraged. With a World Mountain escape trigram, he avoided Xiao Yan's 8 trigrams collapse and began to patiently deal with Xiao Yan. On the mountain peak, Wang Lin frowned slightly and asked with uncertainty, "Second senior brother, are you going to use the same method you used against little junior brother to wear down eldest senior brother's patience and drive?" Little brother wrinkled his cute little nose. "Eldest senior brother, please don't fall for it. But I really can't be sure. Sometimes, eldest senior brother's temper is even more impatient than mine." Silently watch. Lin Feng smiled faintly, watching the two fighting at the foot of the mountain. Zhu Yi's sword of change was ever-changing as he dealt with Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan laughed. "You want to use the same method you used against little junior brother to deal with me? But don't tell me I don't believe in heresy. I'll really fall for it. I'll give you a chance. Let's decide the winner." With that, Xiao Yan's dermic powers were raised to the extreme. He turned into a phantom and pounced at Zhu Yi. Chapter 112. I don't believe in heresy. I'll give you the chance. Let's decide the victor. Xiao Yan pushed his dermic powers to their limits, and his movement technique was so fast that it could not be captured by the naked eye as he rushed in front of Zhu Yi. The powerful energy waves from the collapse of the 8 trigrams almost caused the surrounding space to tremble and collapse. Zhu Yi raised his brows and threw away the sword in his hand in the face of Xiao Yan's aggressive collapse of the 8 trigrams. There's fire in the swamp, change. A gentleman rules the world. Sword of revolution. Zhu Yi did not use his sword, and instead, he put 2 fingers together and conjured a sword art. A sword chi shot out from Zhu Yi's fingertip and grew larger and larger. In the blink of an eye, it expanded to nearly 1,000 feet. That sword move seemed as if it wanted to reverse the situation of the world, change the world, reform the Tao, and change the mandate of heaven. That sword was much sharper than the Heaven and Earth Tempest sword force and the Brightshore sword force that defeated Tiny Tot. That was the sharpest and strongest sword move that Zhu Yi had comprehended in the Sword of Yi, the Sword of Revolution. The sword chi that was like a waterfall was resplendent and condensed. Not only did it represent the creation of all things, it also represented an unparalleled human Tao force. Even if Xiao Yan's 8 trigrams collapsed, it would not be able to destroy that sword immediately. Since it could not destroy it immediately, the sharp sword chi shot toward Xiao Yan. This is the moment when your aura is declining. Eldest senior brother, you've lost. In this sparring session, Wang Lin's cultivation realm was too low and did not count. He had won both battles against Xiao Yan and Tiny Tot. Zhu Yi let out a long roar in high spirits. Faced with Zhu Yi's sword that could change destiny, Xiao Yan looked impressed and cheered. Good. However, that was not enough. The collapse of the 8 trigrams resolved external demons. There would always be many obstacles on the path of cultivation. The so-called demons were these obstacles. Cultivators could defeat demons to prove their great Tao. Everything external, harmful obstacles, dangers, enemies, and difficulties can be called external devils. Xiao Yan was now using a variant of his 8 trigrams disintegration technique to resolve these external demons. The shockwave that could destroy all things overlapped, but it did not spread outwards. Instead, it tightly surrounded Xiao Yan's body, as if it had turned into an invincible armor. All of the attacks aimed at Xiao Yan were completely shattered by this horrifying vibrating force, completely dispelled. The black-clothed young man formed seals with both hands as he stood there solemnly, and he actually revealed a formidable concept of immobility and eternity. Zhu Yi's face darkened. His leather sword style was the most powerful sword style in the Sword of Change Tao, but it was also the one that consumed the most spiritual power. Originally, he had already fought a fierce battle with the little guy. Now he had to fight Xiao Yan again. After 2 consecutive evenly matched battles, even though Zhu Yi was already at foundation building, his magic power was almost completely exhausted. The leather sword style did not succeed, and Zhu Yi lost the power to fight again. However, what made him even more depressed was that the situation where he was waiting to wear down Xiao Yan's spirit and spiritual power with one strike was completely reversed in the blink of an eye. This feeling made Zhu Yi feel more uncomfortable than failure, as if a breath was blocked and could not be spat out. Xiao Yi, come up first. Lin Feng looked at Zhu Yi indifferently, then turned to Xiao Budian and said, Tian Hao, are you interested in fighting with your eldest senior brother? Xiao Budian rolled his eyes and said with a smile, Please give me some pointers, eldest senior brother. His small body jumped tens of meters high, flipped lightly in the air, and landed in the valley. Zhu Yi took a deep breath and floated up the mountain. He stood beside Lin Feng and looked at Xiao Yan and Xiao Budian in the valley in a daze. Lin Feng thought, Zhu Yi studied hard for 10 years and cultivated the way of a gentleman, but he did not cultivate gentleness and modesty. In Zhu Yi's mind, the way of a gentleman was to be the first in the world, to dare to be the first in the world, to dare to be the first in the world, to strive to be the first in the world, to strive to be the first in the world, to strive to be the first in the world, and to strive to be the first in the world. Although he never said it and maintained the due respect for Xiao Yan, the eldest senior brother, and the relationship between the two was relatively harmonious. Zhu Yi always had a fire burning in his heart. He wanted to be the first among Lin Feng's disciples and become the role model of the sect. You're not convinced after losing, and you're not happy? Lin Feng asked indifferently. Zhu Yi was shocked. After hesitating for a moment, he calmly nodded. He advocated the way of a gentleman, but he was also a young man. He would also think highly of himself and be hot-blooded and brave. How could he be willing to lose to others, even if that person was his senior brother? Zhu Yi analyzed his mentality very clearly, but he did not intend to restrain it. It was the nature of young people to be jealous and competitive. Blindly suppressing it and pretending to be mature was like using a sandbag to block a flood. Not only was it against the natural order, but it was also easy to cause problems. It was better to let it out. Lin Feng turned and looked at Zhu Yi as if he wanted to see the bottom of Zhu Yi's heart. Then, what are you going to do? Zhu Yi said in a deep voice, I want to compete with eldest senior brother again. Otherwise, it's like a stone is stuffed in my heart. My heart is full of stones that can't be dispelled, and my thoughts can't be clear. Thought flow? The corners of Lin Feng's mouth curved. What is thought flow? Zhu Yi answered, I read a Buddhist scripture in the past. It said, thinking without stagnation is merit. Understanding one's nature is merit. Acting according to one's nature is virtue. Thinking without stagnation and acting according to one's nature is virtue. I think this is clear. Lin Feng nodded. It's not completely unreasonable, but have you ever thought of a problem? If you act according to your nature and do whatever you want, if your thoughts are clear, it is very likely that others will go against their nature, and many others will not be clear, Lin Feng said slowly. You believe in the way of a gentleman. You should know that you should not do to others what you do not want to do to yourself. Speaking up to this point, Lin Feng smiled slightly. There is nothing wrong with living in the world, but seeking what one's heart wants. There is nothing wrong with living a happy and carefree life. However, only focusing on one's own understanding and making others suffer, this is called self-centeredness. Hearing Lin Feng's words, Zhu Yi was stunned speechless, unable to say anything for a long time. When he came back to his senses, he was shocked to find that his back was already soaked in cold sweat. Zhu Yi was able to discern reason and was smarter than others. With a bit of thought, he understood the deeper meaning hidden in Lin Feng's unfinished words. One can be domineering and selfish, but it is best to know one's own limits. One must clearly understand that one's way of doing things is domineering and selfish in the eyes of the world. One cannot think that one's domineering and selfishness is a matter of course in the eyes of most people. Otherwise, one will only be blinding one's own eyes. Zhu Yi's entire body was covered in cold sweat. This is because he thought, isn't his father, the Marquis of Xuanji, a person like this? Asking others to act according to their own moral standards and rules, yet not caring about other people's feelings. He would even think that everything is a matter of course, thinking that he is always right, making decisions for others without permission, yet thinking that he is right, and even more thinking that the other person should be grateful to him. What suits one's heart is right. What doesn't suit one's heart is wrong. Mistakes must be changed. Otherwise, they are unreasonable and unforgivable. Their own likes and dislikes are right and wrong. Those who obey me prosper. Those who oppose me die. Lin Feng looked at Zhu Yi and sighed in his heart. Sometimes he has to say that the power of inheritance is strong. No matter how father and son Zhu Yi and the Marquis of Xuanji don't get along, there are similarities in their bones. Zhu Yi closed his eyes, letting his shaken mind gradually calm down. His thoughts have now reached a fork in the road. On one side is the road he was originally pursuing. A gentleman walks on the straight road, his heart like a newborn child, his will like steel. On the other side is a self-centered road. Walking on this road, his father, the Marquis of Xuanji, is waiting for him there. Both roads are firm in one's beliefs and unwavering compromises. But there is a fundamental difference between the two. The former is truly following one's heart, while the latter is essentially just indulging in lust. Zhu Yi slowly opened his eyes, bowing to Lin Feng with the greeting of a teacher, sincerely saying, "Disciple almost walked on the wrong path. Thanks to Master's reminder, disciple is ashamed." Lin Feng laughed. Being able to wake up so quickly shows that you still have a clear understanding of your own heart. Lin Feng, of course, is not happy that Zhu Yi is becoming more and more like his old man, the Marquis of Xuanji. Zhu Yi becoming self-centered is not only because he is at odds with his old man, the Marquis of Xuanji. As his master, Lin Feng will also be affected. Despicable differences will arise between the master and disciple, finally becoming enemies. A disciple who can constantly reflect on himself and clearly understand himself is what Lin Feng wants. Seeing that Zhu Yi has already understood, Lin Feng nodded his head in satisfaction. Looking down at the center of the valley, he smiled, saying, "All right, compose yourself and carefully watch the battle between Xiaoyan and Tianhao. The outcome is about to be decided." Chapter 113. On the mountain, Lin Feng was educating Zhu Yi. At the foot of the mountain, Xiao Yin and Xiao Budian had already pulled apart their battle formation. Xiao Yin looked at Xiao Budian and said with a smile, "Little junior brother, we both walk the straightforward path. Why don't we be more direct and decide the winner with one move?" Xiao Budian giggled, "Sure." Before he finished speaking, the little fellow raised both of his pink and tender hands. On the lightning long saber in his left hand, a roaring hurricane whistled and circulated. On the tornado saber in his right hand, violent lightning twisted and turned chaotically. "Eldest senior brother, take it." Xiao Budian put his hands together, and the wind and thunder interweaved, encouraging and surging. The strength of both sides increased rapidly, and quickly turned into a huge cycle composed of thunderstorms above Xiao Budian's head. In the cycle, the wind and thunder blended together, but they were also clearly separated, as if they were the two extremes of heaven and earth. Xiao Yin scolded with a smile, "Brat, you haven't finished speaking and you already cast a spell. Is there a need to take advantage of me?" While laughing, Xiao Yin punched the void in front of him, displaying the 8 trigrams disintegration divine ability. The whistling, surging wind and thunder continuously collapsed and shattered under the power of the 8 trigrams disintegration. But immediately a new wind and thunder roared out, pouncing toward Xiao Yin, and then it was destroyed by the 8 trigrams disintegration. Xiao Yin and Xiao Budian frowned at the same time. Both of them realized that the fight between them had fallen into a strange balance. One side kept creating hurricanes and thunder, while the other side kept breaking and destroying them. The battle between the two had completely fallen into a battle of attrition. If there was no change, the final test would be whose magic power was more abundant. In terms of magic, it was a complete tie. Xiao Yin raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Little junior brother, I just don't believe in heresy." With that, the black-clothed youth's magic power surged wildly, and the cloud dragon escape was displayed to the extreme. Suddenly, he got close to Xiao Budian. On the mountain, Lin Feng saw this scene, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Zhu Yi was competitive, but wasn't Xiao Yin the same? In the black-clothed youth's belief, he wanted to be a worthy eldest senior brother who could be called a role model for his juniors. Seeing that Xiao Yin had taken the initiative to get close to him, Xiao Budian chuckled. "Eldest senior brother, sometimes you have to believe in the supernatural." The raging wind and thunder interweaved together and met Xiao Yan's 8 trigrams disintegration. The spells of both sides clashed together, and Xiao Yin rushed in front of Tiny Tot and punched out. He wanted to see if his little junior brother's physical strength was really so strong that it was unparalleled. Since it was a contest of strength, Xiao Budian was naturally not going to be polite. He swung his hand and punched out, colliding with Xiao Yin. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Victory and defeat will be decided soon." On the mountain, Zhu Yi and Wang Lin widened their eyes as they watched the fierce battle in the valley. Bang! A muffled, thunderous sound rang out as the two fists collided. The scattered energy caused all the dust on the nearby ground to fly up. Xiao Budian stood proudly in place, not taking a step back. The ground beneath his feet cracked inch by inch, and soil and rocks flew everywhere. Xiaoyan was forcefully blasted away by Xiao Budian and flew backwards. He flipped in midair to remove the force and landed on the ground. Looks like I really can't believe in the supernatural. Xiao Yin swung his fist, grimacing in pain as he said, "Just what did you eat to grow up, brat? This body is simply amazing." Xiao Budian chuckled. "Eldest senior brother, thank you for letting me win." Xiaoyan smiled and shook his head. Originally, the two of them should have fought to a draw, but he did not believe in the supernatural and insisted on challenging Xiao Budian's physical strength, causing him to lose a move. Lin Feng floated down from the mountain peak and looked at Xiao Yin with a smile. "How does it feel to attack the enemy's strong point with your weak point?" Xiao Yin smiled and said, "Terrible. Comparing notes between fellow disciples is not like fighting with external enemies. Winning or losing is not important. What's important is to gain something from it." Lin Feng smiled and looked at his four disciples. He first looked at Xiao Budian. "Tian Hao, you did not let me down. You specialize in the way of wind and thunder and even surpass the 8 diagrams of the Great Way of Heaven. You have come into contact with some of the mysterious principles of yin and yang. This is very good." Xiao Budian chuckled and scratched the back of his head. Lin Feng continued to say, "But there are still shortcomings. Even though your infinite wind and thunder strength is strong, but the speed at which it can be activated is still on the slow side. In order to let you display the spells that you have comprehended to your heart's content, your eldest senior brother and a second senior brother intentionally or unintentionally let you prepare before attacking. The real opponent will not give you this opportunity." Lin Feng pointed at Wang Lin and said, "Let's not talk about anything else. Your third senior brother's finger of quietus will be activated instantly. Before your wind and thunder power can take shape, you will be enveloped by the dead space he created. Of course, you can use your own strength to break through the dead zone like Xiao Yin, but that's because your cultivation level is higher than Xiao Lin's. Xiao Lin is also in the early stage of foundation establishment like you, so it won't be easy for you." After listening to Lin Feng's words, Xiao Budian stopped smiling and solemnly accepted the lesson. Lin Feng then looked at Wang Lin and said, "Xiao Lin, the most important thing for you now is to improve your cultivation as soon as possible and perfect the third finger of your finger of underworld." Wang Lin quickly nodded. "Both of you should know where you need to improve, right?" Lin Feng looked at Xiao Yin and Zhu Yi with a faint smile. Xiao Yin and Zhu Yi both smiled embarrassedly and said, "We already know." Lin Feng nodded with satisfaction and said, "It's good that both of you have learned something." Xiao Yin and the other three looked at each other and smiled. They were sincerely convinced and bowed to Lin Feng together and said, "It's all thanks to Master's teachings." Lin Feng smiled, feeling satisfied with the sparring between the disciples of his sect this time. In other words, under the wise leadership of Comrade Lin Feng, the 4 personal disciples enthusiastically signed up and competed to show off their style and elegance. Friendship first, competition second. In the end, this internal exchange meeting came to a successful conclusion. This was a successful, memorable meeting that was worth learning from by his colleagues. After blowing his own trumpet in his heart, Lin Feng sent the 4 away to comprehend and summarize what they learned from this competition and improve their own spells. Lin Feng also calmed down and thought seriously. 8 trigrams collapse. After a moment of contemplation, Lin Feng suddenly punched forward. Circles after circles of vibrating power spread out like ripples, and the whole space suddenly seemed like it was about to collapse and collapse. Lin Feng's expression did not change. He casually pointed, and the space not far away was immediately shrouded by a dark death aura. It was the finger of quietus of Wang Lin's All Heaven's Yellow Springs finger. He raised his hands, and wind and thunder intertwined and fused together. They surged continuously and strengthened each other, increasing the power with an almost infinite momentum. After dispersing the infinite wind and thunder, Lin Feng made a sword gesture with his right hand and used his fingers as a sword. He swung his sword twice. A long rainbow-like sword chi shot out from his fingertips and instantly grew to 100 feet. It was filled with an unstoppable momentum that could change the world. The sort of change path. There's fire in the swamp, changing the sword. The spells of his 4 disciples were easily mastered by Lin Feng, and the level of concept was even higher than the original owners. The 8 trigrams Heaven Great Tao scripture was created by Lin Feng with the help of the system and by combining the 8 Great Tao techniques. In the world, the person who had the deepest understanding of this Tao technique was still himself. Therefore, the spells that Xiao Yin and the others comprehended from the Great Tao scripture, Lin Feng only needed to look at them once to understand the true meaning behind them. However, Lin Feng did not intend to continue to study them in depth. He just used them as a reference. These spells are all very good, but they are not mine, and they're not the spells that are most suitable for me. Lin Feng had a sudden realization. Just like the fury of the Akala and the golden body of Ksitigarbha, although they are excellent, they are not the spells that are most suitable for me. Originally, there was no comparison, and the feeling was not obvious. However, ever since I comprehended the 2 realms void technique, I truly felt that it was a spell that belonged to me, a spell that was most suitable for me, and a path that belonged to me. Lin Feng smiled slightly. Other spells can also be used. When fighting with others, one has to be flexible and adaptable. The profoundness lies in one's heart. It's fine as long as one can win. But one's own Tao technique, one's own spells, are the foundation. With the verification of many spells, Lin Feng's understanding of the 8 trigrams Heaven Great Tao scripture improved by another step. At this moment, his mind was quick-witted, and a few vague ideas appeared in his mind. This seems to be another spell that is completely different from the 2 realms void technique. However, the main points still need to be perfected. Lin Feng stood up, tidied up his emotions, and thought. The information that Long Yi gave me only said that the Blessed Land is in the western mountain range of the northern foot of Kunlun Mountain, but there was no specific location. The northern foot of Kunlun Mountain stretches for more than 10,000 li. Searching for it will definitely not be easy. Since accepting the 3rd main mission of finding the cave and opening the mountain gate, Lin Feng himself went into seclusion to build his foundation. Adding on the time that his 3 disciples went into seclusion, almost half a year had already passed. The time limit of 3 years for the mission seemed to be much more generous than the 2 missions of 1 year. However, things like time always pass in the blink of an eye. Lin Feng didn't dare to delay any longer. He gathered his 4 disciples, used the black cloud flag to roll them up, and immediately set off. Target Kunlun Mountain. Chapter 114. The geographical location of the Kunlun Mountain Range is to the west of the Great Hengduan Mountain Range, situated to the northwest of the Great Hengduan Mountain Range. It stretches on endlessly and is one of the few large mountain ranges in the entire Heaven Primal world. The mountain range is filled with wondrous peaks and abundant spiritual energy. Countless sects and cultivators choose to establish their abodes here. The Wind God sect that had a conflict with Xiao Yan's group and was even chased by core disciple Gao Long. Their sect is situated in a valley at the southern foot of the Kunlun Mountain Range filled with spiritual energy. When Lin Feng first found out from Xiao Yan's mouth that the enemy was the Wind God sect, his expression was strange, thinking of this point. In the future, he and the other party might even be neighbors. Although the Kunlun Mountain Range has many paradises and grottos that are rich in spiritual energy, most of them are only above average. So the sects that have settled down here are as numerous as the stars in the sky, but there aren't many top-notch ones. Most of them are some mid-level cultivation powers that have settled down here. This also made Lin Feng's heart slightly beat, not knowing if Long Ye's information is accurate or not. If that Jade Capital Mountain is really that good, why don't other people get there first? Jade Capital Mountain is the paradise that Long Yi introduced to Lin Feng. Jade Capital Mountain actually can't completely be considered a mountain in the Kunlun Mountain Range, but a wondrous mountain that floats above the 9 heavens and is shrouded in clouds and astral winds all year round. This mountain often merges into the foreign space and is faintly discernible, not completely standing in this world. Long Ye's original words once again rang in Lin Feng's ears. Jade Capital Mountain is usually hidden in cracks in space. It's hard to find the location of its door. It only truly appears once every 60 years. The entire mountain will separate from the foreign space and completely descend into this world. That's your chance. It's already been 58 years since Jade Capital Mountain last appeared. In another 2 years, it will be time for Jade Capital Mountain to reappear. Whether or not you can grasp the opportunity is up to you. Lin Feng frowned slightly, riding the black cloud flag above the sea of clouds, gazing at the Kunlun mountain range in front of him. Many peaks soared into the sky, piercing through the clouds and straight into the blue sky, full of pressure. But there was no trace of Jade Capital Mountain. It's already been over a year since I broke up with Long Yi. The 2-year period is about to arrive. However, Lin Feng had been searching in the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain for almost half a year, but he still found nothing. On the contrary, he had killed quite a number of demonic beasts in the mountains and collected quite a number of rare and exotic herbs. His own magic power had condensed quite a bit, and he had become much more proficient in his spells and divine abilities. The 4 disciples had also gone through a lot of experiences and had become more mature. However, it was of no help to Lin Feng in his search for Yujing Mountain. After thousands of years of development, countless reshuffles and games had taken place in the world of cultivation, and all the major forces were deeply rooted in the world. The blessed lands and grotto heavens with the best quality and most suitable for cultivation were all occupied by the top forces. Currently, Lin Feng would definitely not be able to compete with them. Lin Feng would not be willing to settle for a worse blessed paradise, and he believed that his disciples would be extremely disappointed. In comparison, the Yujing Mountain that Long Yi told him about was already the most reliable and most suitable. That which had the intention of having Lin Feng develop and fight with the Taishu Temple, Mount Shu Sword Sect, and the other major forces of the human race to fight for resources. She sincerely hoped that Lin Feng would be able to make a name for himself, so the information she provided was completely true. However, her information was still too general. The northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain were vast and boundless. Lin Feng was really about to throw up looking for it. He had already sent out his 4 disciples to search separately. These kids already have a certain level of self-protection and are not afraid of acting alone. The key is that they're all people with great luck and heaven-defying opportunities. They're just right for this kind of work. Lin Feng was currently flying in the air on the black cloud flag when he suddenly saw thick smoke billowing and flames flashing halfway up a mountain below. Looking closely, it was a small mountain village enveloped in a sea of raging flames. In the sea of flames, people were fleeing in panic. The cries of women and children filled the air. Lin Feng frowned. He saw a strange scarlet-red bird fluttering in the flames. It looked like a crow. The feathers on its body were scarlet-red like flames. Smoke flew as it flashed. It occasionally let out strange cries and spat out flames from its mouth. Fire crow. Lin Feng recognized the origin of this strange bird. Fire crow, a descendant of the ancient peak vicious beast, the 3-legged golden crow. 3-legged golden crow, an ancient peerless demon. It can control the true fire of the sun, one of the 7 great true fires. Rumor has it that it is the incarnation of the sun. Its ferocious might overflows the heavens, and the fire it controls can burn the heavens and boil the seas. Even though the golden crow's bloodline in the fire crow's body is already mixed and impure, it still has some of its ancestors' power to control fire. The fire it can control is called the true fire of the rising sun. It is a shrunken version of the true fire of the sun, but its power is still not ordinary. That fire crow looked at the miserable scene of hell on earth that it created in front of its eyes and seemed to be extremely satisfied. It cawed strangely, as if a person was laughing loudly. Lin Feng frowned. He casually flicked his finger, and a stream of dim yellow air current shot out from his finger. The underworld pearl was taken away by Wang Lin, so Lin Feng couldn't borrow the underworld true water in it, but his arcane energy already had some of the aura of the underworld true water. Even though it wasn't the real underworld true water, that fire crow's flames weren't the true fire of the sun either. The mere true fire of the rising sun was instantly extinguished when it came in contact with the dim yellow air current, and the fire essence within it was purified. The small mountain village that was originally in a sea of flames quickly calmed down. The villagers stared blankly at Lin Feng in the sky. After a long while, they finally realized that they were saved. They all bowed to Lin Feng, thanking him for saving their lives. That fire crow was shocked. It looked at Lin Feng, cawed strangely, and actually spoke the human language. Taoist, don't meddle in other people's business, or I will definitely refine you into a fire slave. My young master and a large number of our clansmen are nearby. Don't seek your own death. Lin Feng couldn't be bothered with its hooting. He just wanted to reward this fellow with the two realms void technique and send it to reincarnation. However, Lin Feng had been searching for Mount Yujing recently, and it had given him a headache. He paid extra attention to all kinds of information. Even though Kunlun Mountain is filled with demons, the human race is also extremely powerful. Why does this fire crow dare to be so arrogant? Lin Feng thought. It said that a large number of our kind are nearby, and that some young master is also there. These fire crows can't be moving in such a large scale without a purpose. It's most likely that they're also looking for something. Could it be Mount Yujing as well? Thinking of this, Lin Feng immediately changed his mind. He looked at that fire crow and smiled. We're your kind. Bring me to them. That fire crow was furious. Reckless human. As it flapped its wings, waves of fire surged, instantly turning into a sea of fire in front of it. Dozens of fire crow soul essences, burning with raging flames, flew out from the scarlet sea of fire and charged at Lin Feng. These fire crow soul essences were all people killed by this fire crow. After their souls were imprisoned, they were meticulously refined and condensed into the magic power of the rising sun true fire. It was extremely vicious. Lin Feng's expression did not change. He stretched out his hand and pointed, activating the two realms void technique. The space burning with raging flames in front of the fire crow, and the space that Lin Feng was originally in instantly switched positions. The ferocious fire crow soul essences all missed. The raging flames that the fire crow used to protect itself also disappeared. Instead, it was Lin Feng who directly appeared in front of it. The fire crow stared at Lin Feng, dumbfounded. Lin Feng casually slapped the top of the fire crow's head, directly shattering its skull. That fire crow let out a strange cry, and a red light shot out of its head. Its soul was trying to escape. Lin Feng was already prepared. With a heaven cage sigil, he sealed the red light. Looking at the fire crow soul that was struggling in fear and flapping its wings, Lin Feng smiled slightly. All right, now tell me, where are those of your kind? Why have you all appeared in such a large scale in this place? The fire crow's soul roared angrily. Human, don't even think about getting anything from me. You will definitely die and be buried in raging flames. Lin Feng chuckled. I only know that if you don't speak, you will be buried in raging flames. Saying so, he flicked his finger lightly. A milky white flame landed on the fire crow's soul. The immovable Wisdom King's wrath that could even burn ordinary flames burned the fire crow to the point that it wanted to die. It was on its last breath. Finally, Lin Feng pried open this fire crow's mouth and obtained a piece of news that made him excited. This flock of fire crows had entered deep into the north of Kunlun Mountain in search of Yujing Mountain, and their leader, the fire crow young master, knew the exact location of Yujing Mountain. Chapter 115. Then does the fire crow young master know the exact location of Jade Capital Mountain? Lin Feng's eyes instantly lit up. Unfortunately, no matter how he asked, the fire crow couldn't tell him the exact location. It seemed like it really didn't know. It could only provide Lin Feng with the approximate location of a few fire crows and let Lin Feng try his luck. Sadly, the opponent is after all a bird. Lin Feng followed the map and found a few places, but he either missed or only saw a pile of ruins that had been burnt to ashes. Lin Feng landed in front of a pile of ruins. His nose could still smell a burnt smell in the air. Lin Feng suddenly felt something and looked behind him. A moment later, a person came out of the forest. It was a white-clothed young man with a handsome face. The mana around him flowed and formed a line. He was already at the 12th level of Qi disciple perfection. The white-clothed young man was first shocked when he saw Lin Feng. He looked at Lin Feng with some caution and asked, "Who are you? Are you also here to exterminate those fire crows?" His gaze landed on the burnt ruins, and anger appeared on his face. These goddamn beasts, they destroyed another village. Lin Feng sized him up and smiled. "That's right, I'm here for that flock of fire crows." The white-clothed young man said emotionally. This flock of fire crows suddenly appeared in the nearby area and wreaked havoc in the forest, killing many people. The young disciples of a few sects nearby have banded together and are preparing to exterminate them. "Do you want to come with us?" Lin Feng was about to refuse when he heard the white-clothed young man continue. "Senior brother Gao has a strange treasure that can roughly locate the location of the fire crows. We're currently tracking those Yao birds." Lin Feng's heart moved. The refusal that was already at the tip of his tongue changed immediately. This couldn't be better. He paused and then said, "But you trust me so much? This is the first time we've met." The white-clothed young man smiled. "At least we're all humans. Even if you're vicious and evil, those Yao that kill humans are our common enemies, aren't they? Not to mention I see that you're noble and handsome. You don't seem like a vicious person." Lin Feng smiled non-committally. "Since that's the case, let's be on our way." The white-clothed young man nodded and led the way, leading Lin Feng to meet up with his companions. On the way, Lin Feng learned that the white-clothed young man was called Yang Qing, a disciple of a small sect Cloudwater Cave in the northeast of Kunlun Mountain. He was only 16 this year. Lin Feng was secretly amazed. This kind of talent obviously can't compare to Xiao Budian and the other true sons of heaven, the children of luck, but even if placed in some large sects, he's also at the level of genius and elite. Back then, when Murong Yinran, who came to break off Xiao Yan's engagement, was chosen by the Celeritas sword sect, she was only 14 years old, Qi disciple level 10. But Yang Qing didn't feel proud about it. Instead, he blushed. "I'm just quick in improving my cultivation. In actual fighting, I'm very weak. Whether it's spells or martial arts, I'm not good at either. I can't practice the things that other disciples can learn very quickly. So I can only practice spells and raise my realm. Whether it's spells or martial arts, I'm not good at either. I can't practice the things that other disciples can learn quickly. So I can only practice spells and raise my realm with all my might." Lin Feng raised his eyebrows and looked at Yang Qing, who was vexed and feeling inferior. This was a gentle young man with little life experience who easily trusted others. If it was someone who knew how to deal with people, how could he tell others about his situation on their first meeting? Lin Feng secretly shook his head. Compared to his lack of understanding in spells and abilities, the problem with this kid's mind was more fatal. The two of them walked on and climbed up a mountain. Before they reached the peak, laughter came from above. "Is Brother Yang back? Did you find any traces of fire crows?" Before Yang Qing could reply, Lin Feng's brows furrowed into a knot. Logically, the laughter coming from the peak was clear and warm, approachable, and made people feel like they were bathed in the spring breeze. There was an unstoppable calmness and an elegant and natural temperament. It was amiable, as if just listening to him talk was a kind of enjoyment. But why did Lin Feng hear a strong sense of pretentiousness from this person's spring breeze-like words? The two of them reached the peak and saw a handsome young man in a white linen robe looking at them with a smile. Yang Qing quickly raised his hand to greet. "How dare I trouble senior brother Gao to wait here?" At the same time, he introduced to Lin Feng. This is Gao Fan from the Wind God Sect, Senior Brother Gao. This joint operation to eliminate fire crows was organized by Senior Brother Gao. Wind God Sect? Why would the Wind God Sect disciple from the south of Kunlun Mountain appear in the northern mountain range? Before Lin Feng could speak, laughter came from afar. Yang Qing, you're too slow. You also know that you can't afford to wait for Senior Brother Gao? A few young men and women walked over together. Their clothes were different. Obviously, they came from different sections. Two of the female disciples glanced at Gao Fan. However, one of them took a peek and then immediately looked away, pretending to be indifferent and cold. After a while, she took another peek. The other one stared at Gao Fan with a fiery gaze, not concealing her admiration. Gao Fan smiled. Brother Yang went out to investigate. It's only right for me to welcome him. If there's any danger, I can help. His voice was kind, indifferent, calm, and even revealed a bit of elegance. Listening to it, it was really indescribable. Like Yang Qing, he was also dressed in a white robe. But when the two stood together, Gao Fan was like a lonely wolf king, while Yang Qing was like a dog with its tail between its legs. The contrast was extremely strong. Gao Fan was like a magnet. Wherever he was, other people would automatically gather. Except for the few people who arrived first, the other dozens of young cultivators, men and women, all walked over. It looked as if everyone was welcoming Yang Qing together, but even Yang Qing himself knew that they were just getting closer to Gao Fan. Lin Feng glanced around and saw that among the people in front of him, Gao Fan was a Foundation Establishment cultivator. Moreover, he was a middle-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator, a Spirit Platform cultivator. As for the others, there were 3 early-stage Foundation Establishment cultivators, and the rest were only Qi refining cultivators. Most of them were not even as good as Yang Qing, who was at the great perfection of Qi refining. The lowest cultivation was only at the 9th level of Qi refining. But judging from the attitude of the few people who came first, many people didn't take Yang Qing seriously. It seemed that everyone knew that Yang Qing was not good at fighting. Lin Feng could only shake his head at this. He hoped that Yang Qing, this silly boy, would learn a lesson in the future and not always expose his shortcomings. Wind God Sect? I've known a Wind God Sect cultivator before. His name is Gao Long. Lin Feng glanced at Gao Fan and said slowly, "What's his relationship with you?" Gao Long was short and couldn't be compared to the handsome Gao Fan in front of him. But if you look closely, you would find that the two people's eyebrows and eyes were somewhat similar. Gao Fan smiled slightly. Gao Long is my cousin and also my junior brother. He has a bad temper and is somewhat arrogant. He often causes trouble outside. If he unintentionally offended you, I apologize on his behalf. I hope you won't take it to heart. Everyone cheered for Gao Fan's grace. This was exactly the usual style of their senior brother Gao. Lin Feng also smiled and shook his head. No, your younger brother and I hit it off at first sight. It's just that in the blink of an eye, we've been separated for 2 years. It's a pity that we haven't met again. But to be able to meet his cousin today, it can be considered fate. Gao Fan smiled and nodded. How should I address you? Fellow Taoist. Just call me Taoist Lin. Gao Fan pondered for a moment and then asked, did fellow Taoist Lin also come to kill the fire crows? Lin Feng smiled faintly. Everyone has the right to kill this kind of evildoer. Well said. Gao Fan applauded and praised. Lin Feng pondered for a moment and then asked, I heard from Yang Qing that you have a way to find the traces of the fire crows. Chapter 116. I heard from Yang Qing that you have a way to find traces of the fire crows. Lin Feng pondered for a moment before asking Gao Fan. A female cultivator in the crowd immediately glared at Yang Qing. Yang Qing sure has a big mouth. Yang Qing smiled apologetically. Lin Feng looked at the female cultivator. She was beautiful and extremely tall. She looked like a rose with thorns. Aside from Gao Fan, this woman was one of the 3 remaining Foundation Establishment cultivators. Although she was in the early stage of Foundation Establishment, she faintly exuded a fierce aura. It was obvious that she often fought with others and had rich combat experience. Gao Fan smiled. Junior sister Chenxi, it's fine. When facing Gao Fan, Li Chenxi immediately turned from a tigress to a docile and obedient kitten. She responded gently, "Yes, senior brother Gao." From the way Gao Fan addressed her, the two had a deep friendship. The other female cultivators looked at Li Chenxi with envy. However, due to Gao Fan's presence and their fear of Li Chenxi's cultivation methods, all the female cultivators lowered their heads and did not reveal their displeasure. Gao Fan turned to Lin Feng and said with a smile, "Actually, it's nothing special. I once accidentally obtained a feather of the fire crow demon commander. With this feather, I can barely sense the fire crows within a certain range." Lin Feng smiled. "That's good." Li Chenxi quietly approached Gao Fan. "Senior brother Gao, this person's origins are unknown." Gao Fan smiled. "It's fine. Eliminating the fire crows means we are on the same path." Li Chenxi nodded and did not speak further. After joining this temporary team, Lin Feng observed more and spoke less. He secretly observed that this team indeed had Gao Fan as the core. Lin Feng also heard a lot of information regarding Gao Fan. He came from the famous Wind God sect and had opened up his Sea of Qi and established his Tao foundation before the age of 20. After that, he did not advance to the Tao realm for 10 years. Just as everyone was gradually forgetting about him, Gao Fan shocked the world with a single feat. He established a Grade 2 spirit platform and became the #1 person in the Wind God sect's younger generation. Not only was his Tao realm high, but Gao Fan's actual combat strength was even above the Tao realm. He had mastered the Wind God sect's signature spell, Tornado Slash. It was publicly acknowledged in the entire Wind God sect that even the elders of the Golden Elixir period, or even the ancestors of the Yuanying period, would only be able to beat Gao Fan in terms of magic power, but they would not be able to be more proficient than him. When she saw injustice, Gao Fan would often enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. For example, the encirclement and annihilation of the fire crows was initiated by Gao Fan out of righteous indignation when she saw the fire crows slaughtering civilians. It was precisely such a favored genius of the heavens, a star of tomorrow, that was modest, amiable, and approachable. Not only did he not put on the slightest airs when dealing with cultivators with cultivations lower than his, he even frequently generously guided them in Tao arts and provided them with spirit pills and miraculous medicines. Lin Feng looked on coldly from the side. Every time the team stopped to rest, everyone would gather around Gao Fan to ask for guidance on Tao techniques. Gao Fan did not reject any of them and guided them one by one. Naturally, these people would not sell their own Tao techniques completely, and Gao Fan would not overstep his boundaries to ask for it. If anyone had any difficulties in the process of cultivation, Gao Fan would do his best to answer them. At the same time, Gao Fan would also give all kinds of medicinal pills to everyone to help with cultivation, to restore magic power, to detoxify, and so on. All the signs showed that this person was a standard tall, rich, and handsome man in the cultivation world. Furthermore, he was not the kind of low-level, handsome, and rich man who only knew how to bully others with his power. Instead, he was a high-quality, handsome, and rich man who had ideals, connections, ambitions, a sense of justice, a kind heart, and was approachable. Lin Feng turned his head to look at Yang Qing beside him and asked with a smile, "Why don't you go over?" Yang Qing scratched his head and smiled embarrassedly. "Everyone knows about my problem. Even the elders in the sect can't solve it, so I don't want to trouble senior brother Gao." Lin Feng shook his head and did not say anything. Yang Qing's biggest problem was not that his talent in learning Tao techniques was low, but that his will was too weak. However, it was the first time they met, and it was not appropriate to talk too much, so Lin Feng did not say anything more. There were many things, especially things on the level of the will, that still had to rely on oneself. The group of people walked and stopped in the northern mountain range of Kunlun Mountain. One day, Gao Fan, who was the leader, suddenly stopped. The others followed behind him and also stopped moving forward. Lin Feng was in the group and observed quietly. He saw Gao Fan take out a bird feather that was more than a foot long. The feather was crimson, and there was a faint flame jumping on it. Gao Fan frowned and stared at the feather, and said in a deep voice, "It's nearby, and it's approaching us." Lin Feng looked carefully and saw that the frequency of the flame flashing on the feather was getting faster and faster. There was a slight commotion in the crowd. The fighting power of the fire crows was still very strong, especially in large numbers, and it was very difficult to deal with them. Gao Fan took out a gourd from his waist and poured out a pile of crimson, pills the size of mung beans. He turned around and said, "The rising sun, true fire of the fire crows, is quite powerful, especially the smoke produced by their wings. When the smoke and fire are mixed together, it will produce fire poison, which is specially used to break the protective magic power of us human cultivators. If you were to come into contact with a little fire poison, you would be in danger of losing your life. This is the fire avoidance pill refined by the elders of my sect. After taking it, it can prevent the fire poison from attacking you. Everyone take one pill each. Quickly take it and prepare for battle." The group of people walked to Gao Fan's side and quickly took the pill and swallowed it. Lin Feng looked at the crimson pill in his palm, and his pupils shrank slightly, but he quickly returned to normal. He also took the fire avoidance pill from Gao Fan's hand as if nothing had happened. Just as everyone finished taking the pill, they suddenly felt waves of heat coming from the northern sky. Lin Feng gazed into the distance, seeing that the entire sky in the north had been dyed a fiery red color, a massive wave of fire sweeping towards everyone. Hundreds of fire crows flew out from the boundless sea of fire. Their cawing was deafening and irritating to the ears. In the center of the flock of fire crows was a youth dressed in red, but no one dared to compliment his appearance. His body was thin and shriveled, and he had a protruding mouth and monkey cheeks. His face was purplish-black with a hint of red, and a pair of small ears stood straight up. There wasn't a single strand of hair on his bald head. The flock of fire crows surrounded the youth in red in the center and cried out in unison, speaking in human language, "Your Excellency, young master." Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he stared at the youth in red. "This is the Fire Crow young master?" The Fire Crow clan was the descendant of the ancient great demon, the three-legged golden crow. Their clan leader was respectfully addressed as the Fire Crow King. It was rumored that he had already mastered the divine ability of his ancestor, the Golden Crow Great Saint, to control the true fire of the sun. This Fire Crow young master was the youngest son of the Fire Crow King. However, in Lin Feng's eyes, he was just a golden chicken that could lay golden eggs. Lin Feng's eyes moved, but he wasn't in a hurry to make a move. His gaze landed on Gao Fan. Indeed, Gao Fan took a step forward and stared the Fire Crow young master in the sky, saying in a low voice, "Your fire crows have always resided to the south of the Kunlun Mountains. Why have you suddenly entered the Kunlun Mountains and started a massacre of civilians?" The Fire Crow young master ignored him and lowered his head to look at the fiery feather in Gao Fan's hand, snorting through his nose. "I was wondering why the humans were getting closer and closer. So it's because they've obtained the feather of my kin." He stared at Gao Fan and smiled sinisterly. "Since you're in a hurry to die, I'll fulfill your wishes." At his command, the hundreds of fire crows around him cried out in unison as they dove towards Lin Feng and the others on the ground, bringing with them a sea of fire as they descended like a rain of fire. Gao Fan's expression was calm and collected as he looked at the flock of fire crows swooping down from the sky, lightly spitting out a few words. "A sin committed by heaven can be forgiven, but a sin committed by oneself cannot be forgiven." Before he'd finished speaking, the white linen robe on his body suddenly lit up with a burst of green light, merging into the surrounding air and bringing with it tornadoes that rushed into the air, sweeping away the sea of fire brought by the fire crows. Apart from Lin Feng, everyone present cheered in unison. Yang Qing looked at Gao Fan with eyes full of envy. Lin Feng had an indifferent expression on his face as he looked at Gao Fan and let out a clear whistle, waving his arm forward. "Everyone, today is the day to subdue the demons." Everyone yelled in unison, each displaying their abilities as they charged towards the flock of fire crows. Chapter 117. Under Gao Fan's lead, the group of human cultivators engaged in battle with a fire crow fae in the sky. Lin Feng stood in his original spot without moving, while Yang Qing beside him had a look of hesitation. Yang Qing was somewhat eager to give it a try, but also somewhat afraid. Before Li Qinxi entered the fray, she glared at them angrily. "What are the two of you waiting for? Slaying fiends is now." Yang Qing blushed and hurriedly said, "Coming." As she spoke, she charged forward. Lin Feng remained calm and composed. He looked at the battle in the sky and said with an indifferent smile, "I'll hold the line for you." Li Qinxi was taken aback before she angrily grunted, "Coward." With that said, she ignored Lin Feng and charged at the fire crow flock. Towards her disdain, Lin Feng did not take it to heart at all, his gaze looking towards the battle in the air that was gradually reaching its climax. With the help of his flowing wind robe, Gao Fan used the wind to float into the air. He led the charge into the fire crow flock. For a man as eye-catching as him, even in the chaotic and smoke-filled battlefield, he was like a firefly in the night. There was nothing that could conceal his brilliance. With a casual wind blade, he split a fire crow into two. Gao Fan remained calm and composed. His white linen robe made him look handsome and untainted by the smoke and blood. He swept up a violent crack and tore through the fire crow flock. He charged straight at the fire crow young master in midair. To capture the bandits, one had to capture the leader first. Gao Fan clearly had such an idea. The fire crow young master's purplish-black face was now fiery red. His beady eyes stared at Gao Fan, revealing a cruel glint. He let out two strange caws as the flames around him surged like a raging sea. Countless fire crow soul essences in the flames were like a school of fish in the undercurrents of the sea, appearing and disappearing from time to time. Lin Feng looked carefully and discovered that the fire crow young master had refined thousands of fire crow soul essences. That also meant that he had killed at least a few thousand people. Under the control of the fire crow young master, these fire crow essences all turned into runes that merged into the scarlet sea of flames. In the end, the scarlet flames twisted into several pillars of fire that shot into the sky. In the sky, several pillars of fire crisscrossed, forming a mysterious rune. This rune looked like a twisted fire character, but it was specious and had a strange shape. Gao Fan, who was in the air, saw this strange rune and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. "These are the ancient characters of the demon clan, right? It's really rare for you to be able to learn some of its charm." Fire Crow young master laughed weirdly. "Human, take my Fire King incantation." As soon as this strangely shaped fire character appeared, all of the surrounding plants were instantly scorched black and withered. All of the water was instantly evaporated. Gao Fan said with a smile, "Unfortunately, writing is something that we humans have evolved to the extreme. It belongs to our civilization. The writing of your demon clan is just a joke in front of the civilization of our human clan." Against the enemy's super killer move, Gao Fan still wore a smile. He handled it with ease, appearing extremely cool and elegant. "He's really good at acting." Even Lin Feng sighed. This fellow's looks were impeccable. He was even better at acting than him. Gao Fan gathered his hands together and formed a seal in front of his chest. His dermic powers immediately circulated rapidly. Two tornadoes appeared in front of Gao Fan and attacked Fire Crow young master together. As they advanced, the two tornadoes approached each other until they were tightly pressed against each other. They constantly rubbed against each other. During this squeezing process, the two tornadoes did not merge. Instead, both sides were constantly vanishing. All that was left was the point of contact. It formed a gigantic wind blade that was hundreds of feet tall. It was extremely terrifying as it cleaved at Fire Crow young master with the momentum of splitting the world. The group of human cultivators cheered in unison. Tornado slash. It's senior brother Gao's best tornado slash. Li Chinsi shouted, "Bird demon, let's see if you can survive this." Against Gao Fan's tornado slash, Fire Crow Young Master did not dare to take it head-on. He could only dodge. Although the wind blade was massive, it was as fast as the wind. Even though Fire Crow Young Master was a bird-type Fae with extremely fast speed, half of his wings were severed by the wind blade. Blood splattered as feathers rained down from the sky. Fire Crow Young Master cried out in pain, but Gao Fan remained extremely calm on the other side. Against Fire Crow Young Master's ferocious Fire King mantra, Gao Fan remained motionless. He stood calmly in his original spot, not dodging or blocking. When the blazing flames approached him, Gao Fan's white linen robe lit up with azure light, transforming into endless hurricanes that protected Gao Fan. The power of the Fire King mantra exploded, transforming into endless blazing flames that surrounded Gao Fan. However, they were all blocked by the hurricanes, unable to harm Gao Fan at all. Gao Fan leisurely walked out of the blazing flames. Wherever he went, the hurricanes would open up a path, creating a flat path in the sea of flames. His appearance was truly incomparably carefree and unrestrained, as well as indescribably aloof. The eyes of the group of female cultivators all turned into the shape of hearts, making Lin Feng feel disgusted. You can be love-struck now. That might be a good show to watch later. Lin Feng sneered in his heart, but he remained calm on the surface as he watched Gao Fan's performance. Fire Crow Young Master puffed up a bunch of Xiao Yin and stared closely at Gao Fan's white linen robe, saying, "It's a golden elixir period defensive artifact. No wonder you dare to be so arrogant. However, do you think you're the only one with something good?" Fire Crow Young Master shouted, "Today I'll let you humans gain some knowledge." With strange cawing sounds, all the Fire Crows left the battle. Even if their opponents took the chance to heavily injure them, they still had to gather around Fire Crow Young Master. Fire Crow Formation. Fire Crow Young Master screeched and gave up his human form, turning back into his true form. He turned into a giant fire crow that was as tall as a human and had a wingspan of over 3 meters. Under its lead, the other fire crows followed closely behind it. They formed a huge formation and pounced towards Gao Fan from all directions. Hundreds of fire crows, sunrise true fire, connected into one, turning into a boundless sea of fire that endlessly supplied to the leading Fire Crow Young Master. Fire Crow Young Master opened his giant beak and spat out a golden that was as small as a star. But as soon as this little golden dot appeared, an extremely terrifying energy wave spread across the entire area. Only Lin Feng, Gao Fan, and the other Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators could still maintain normal. The group of Qi Disciple Stage cultivators trembled all over, feeling a tremor that came from their souls. It was as if a great disaster was about to befall them. The boundless fire provided by the Fire Crow Formation all flowed into the golden dot. With the supply of this fire, the golden dot quickly grew bigger and gave off a blinding light. True Fire of the Sun. One of the 7 great true fire of the Fire Crow clan's ancestor, the true fire of the 3-legged golden crow. The golden that the Fire Crow Young Master spat out was a fire seed of true fire of the sun. After being nourished by the Fire Crow Formation, the fire seed immediately turned into true fire of the sun. Although it was just a little bit, just this bit of true fire of the sun was enough to burn everyone present to ashes. The blinding golden light was like a small sun. Countless golden flames were burning. These flames weren't the kind that fluttered in the wind. Instead, they were bright, dazzling, and as thin as the tip of a needle and as sharp as an awl. They were like needles. The true fire of the sun was the essence of heavenly fire. The golden flames were formed from billions of light rays, like golden needles. These golden needle-shaped flames were called godly rays of the sun. Any one of them had immense power, let alone when countless rays of godly rays of the sun were gathered together. The Fire Crow Young Master laughed strangely. It's your fortune to be able to see the true fire of the sun. Although the true fire of the sun was golden, The human cultivators' faces turned black from the light. The fact that the other party could summon the true fire of the seven great true fire had exceeded their expectations. Lin Feng's expression was calm. He didn't look at the fire crow young master. Instead, he looked at Gao Fan. The power of the true fire of the sun was too domineering. When it landed in front of Gao Fan's flowing wind robe lit up with a green light to block it, but it was useless. Even a golden elixir period defensive artifact couldn't withstand the ferocious power of the true fire of the sun. The flowing wind robe was destroyed by the true fire of the sun, but there was no fear on Gao Fan's face. Instead, she revealed an expression as if she had gotten what she wanted. She was relaxed and proud. You bird demon, you probably haven't heard of the saying, water and fire are incompatible. Gao Fan revealed a proud smile. She seemed extremely satisfied. The fire crow young master was slightly stunned. Suddenly, he sensed something. The mountain rocks beneath him started to shake. The earth quaked as if something was about to surge out from underground. Boom! Amidst the loud sound, a mountain peak split apart. A green stream of water shot out from underground and surged towards the true fire of the sun. Chapter 118. The huge mountain suddenly shook, and a huge crack appeared at the peak. From the crack, a jade-green current shot into the sky, heading straight for the fire crow formation in the sky. Seeing this jade-green current, the fire crow young master was first stunned. Then his expression changed as if he had seen a ghost. Lunar true water? There's actually a vein of lunar true water hidden under the ground here? Lunar true water was one of the 6 great true waters in the world, along with the Yellow Springs true water and the Blood River true water. This water was known as the commander of all waters, and it had the ability to control water. In a situation where there were many of them, it could even control the other 5 types of true waters. Lunar true water was extremely lean and soft, and it was a pair of archenemies with the yang and masculine true fire of the 7 great true fires. Once the two met, the true water and true fire that had already developed their own spirituality would definitely fight. Seeing this, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Gao Fan and thought, this fellow already knew that there was a vein of lunar true water nearby. Cunning human. The fire crow young master also reacted at this time, but he could only brace himself to block the lunar true water in front of him. He was a fire elemental demon bird, and the lunar true water was his greatest nemesis. Just a little bit of it would immediately cause him to suffer a fate worse than death. If it wasn't for the protection of the solar true fire, he wouldn't even need to really come in contact with the lunar true water. Just the ripples of spirit energy within it would cause the hundreds of fire crows to go limp and lose the ability to resist. The fire crow young master knew that it was time to fight for his life. He pushed the power of the fire crow formation to the extreme, gathering all the power of the hundreds of fire crows, including himself, into the solar true fire. The solar true fire flickered, and its light became even more dazzling. Facing the aggressive lunar true water, it went against the flow and attacked first. The fire of extreme yang and the water of extreme yin collided with each other. The shiny, golden, and needle-like solar divine rays exploded the moment they came into contact with the lunar true water. They turned into thousands of small golden flowers, entangling the jade-green water and exploding again. Rumble, rumble. Every ray of solar divine ray would cause thousands of explosions. Thousands of rays of solar divine ray exploded continuously. Everyone's faces darkened at the sight of that terrifying power. The jade-green lunar true water did not seem to be able to resist the solar true fire at all. The water was blasted into pieces, riddled with holes. However, a strange scene occurred. The water that exploded did not turn into water droplets that filled the sky and fell to the ground. As soon as the green water droplets dispersed, they immediately gathered again and turned into a condensed stream of water, continuing to fight against the bombardment of the sun divine light. No matter how fierce the solar true fire was, the lunar true water did not disperse. In the blink of an eye, it gathered back together. The lunar true water kept gushing out of the ground like a geyser, and the water grew stronger and stronger. On the contrary, as the sun divine light continued to explode, the sun true flame, which had originally looked like a small sun, became smaller and smaller, and its power became weaker and weaker. The solar true fire and the lunar true water were sworn enemies of each other. There was no difference in the quality between the two, and the quality was the same. What decided the outcome of the battle was the quantity. It was clear that although the Fire Crow Young Master was continuously providing magic power to the True Fire Seed, the Solar True Fire was still not strong enough and could not match the sudden appearance of the Lunar True Water. Finally, the Solar True Fire retreated helplessly, and the True Fire Seed retreated back into the Fire Crow Young Master's body. The jade-green water that filled the sky rushed towards the Fire Crow formation like a flash flood. The Fire Crows tried their best to activate their flames to resist, but it was useless. The lunar true water quickly extinguished their final struggle, and the mighty flood instantly destroyed the Fire Crow formation. Hundreds of Fire Crows were drowned by the lunar true water, and they wailed as the lunar true water dissolved all their magic power and froze to death. The Fire Crow Young Master was also drenched by the lunar true water, and his cultivation was crippled. He fell to the ground, but he did not freeze to death just by relying on the last heat from the True Fire Seed. It stared at Gao Fan with hatred and roared hoarsely, "You rack your brains just to perish together with me? The lunar true water has appeared, and it will not easily retreat. All of you will be devoured by it." When the crowd, who were prepared to celebrate their victory, heard this, their expressions changed slightly. Someone looked at the calm and composed Gao Fan. "Senior Brother Gao, is what this bird demon said true?" Li Chenxi interrupted him and said, "Senior Brother, Gao must have already made arrangements. Why are you panicking?" She was about to say something when her expression suddenly changed. That was because the jade-green flood had paused slightly after destroying the Fire Crow formation, before it rapidly surged towards the crowd. Li Chenxi screamed, "Senior Brother Gao." Gao Fan gave a faint smile. "Don't panic. I already made preparations. I have a way to subdue the lunar true water." When the crowd heard this, they heaved a sigh of relief. Someone said with a laugh, "Senior Brother Gao is indeed far-sighted and has a well-thought-out plan. These bird demons deserve to die at Senior Brother Gao's hands." That's right, that's right. It was all thanks to Senior Brother Gao's strategy that we were able to destroy the Fire Crow horde. I already said that with Senior Brother Gao's help, we would definitely succeed. When Gao Fan heard the crowd praising him, he could not help but chuckle. "All of you are exaggerating. Actually, it was all thanks to all of you that we succeeded." Li Chenxi said with a smile, "Senior Brother Gao, you are always so humble." Gao Fan shook his head and had a strange expression. "I am not humble at all. Without all of you, I would not have obtained the lunar true water." Yang Qing looked at his strange expression, and for some unknown reason, she felt a sense of unease. "Senior Brother Gao." Gao Fan looked deeply at the crowd and said with a strange smile, "I really have to thank all of you." He suddenly leaped up and flew into the air, heading towards the lunar true water. Gao Fan produced a few spells with his hands. Everyone present trembled as they were astonished to discover that there was a strange power surging within their bodies. Under the effects of this power, even Li Chenxi and the other two Foundation establishment cultivators could not move. Although they could still circulate their magic power, their bodies were extremely weak. Their heads felt dizzy, and they were unable to concentrate on controlling their magic power to cast spells. A strange red dot appeared between everyone's eyebrows. A red line shot out from the red dot and flew into the air. The dozens of people present all had a red line fly out from between their eyebrows. The other end of the red line all gathered on Gao Fan's body in the air. Dozens of red lines connected to Gao Fan's body. Gao Fan immediately felt a surging life aura fill his body. He was overjoyed. This common people's great cauldron technique is indeed useful. The abundant life aura was transformed into magic power by Gao Fan. It transformed into a large copper cauldron that shone with red light above his head. The copper cauldron was made of red light, and it was completely transparent. However, there were ancient patterns engraved on its outer walls. However, these patterns exuded an evil and bloody aura. Combined, Gao Fan gave a low shout as his hands changed the spells. The red cauldron above his head slowly descended and merged into Gao Fan's body. In the next moment, the dark green lunar true water rushed onto Gao Fan's body. The lunar true water did not cause any harm to him. Instead, it was constantly being devoured by him and merged into his body. In the end, all of the lunar true water had disappeared. Success! Gao Fan revealed a happy smile. This common people's great cauldron technique is truly amazing. Common people's great cauldron technique was an ancient secret technique. First, a living evil seed would be planted in the target's body. Then, a secret technique would be used to induce these evil seeds, using the evil seeds to extract the target's life force and blood essence. Then, the blood essence would be used to refine a magic cauldron that would fuse with the user's body. It could refine everything in the world in a short period of time. Gao Fan had used this technique to turn himself into a cauldron. He used everyone's blood essence as fuel to temporarily refine the lunar true water. In the future, when he found a place to go into seclusion and completely refined the lunar true water, the powerful power of one of the 6 great true waters would completely belong to him. Thinking of that scene, even someone as scheming as Gao Fan could not help but laugh out loud. Li Chenxi and the rest looked in horror at Gao Fan, who was in midair. They were baffled, and fear rose in their hearts. "Senior Brother Gao, what is going on?" Yang Qing asked with a stutter. What else could it be? Everyone was fooled by him. Lin Feng said calmly. A red line extended from his forehead and connected to Gao Fan. Lin Feng could feel his life force being constantly sucked away by Gao Fan through the red line. However, Lin Feng did not panic. He only looked calmly at Gao Fan. At this moment, he completely understood that Gao Fan's goal from the beginning was the lunar true water. It was unknown how this person learned of the existence of the lunar true water. However, the water vein was hidden underground, making it difficult to find or excavate. Therefore, Gao Fan used the fire crows as bait. He used the fire crow's solar true fire to draw out the lunar true water hidden underground. Then, he used everyone else as fuel to help him use a mystic technique to refine and subdue the lunar true water. Everything, one after another, was all part of Gao Fan's plan. From the very beginning, exterminating the fire crows was only a pretense. Whether it was the fire crows or the human cultivators who surrounded and killed the fire crows, they were all just pawns in his plan to collect the lunar true water. This person really has a good plan. If there are no accidents, then he really will succeed. Lin Feng smiled. But it's a pity that I'm here. Looking up at the red line that extended from his glabella, Lin Feng smiled indifferently. He stretched out his right hand and gently swung it down like he was swinging a knife. Chapter 119. Gao Fan's body was shrouded in red light as he fused with the cauldron formed from the essence blood of the people, absorbing the lunar true water into his body. Yang Qing looked at Gao Fan in disbelief and hissed, "Fire avoidance pills. It's those fire avoidance pills." Gao Fan smiled slightly. "Yang Qing, I have always said that you are not stupid. You are just too cowardly. The fire avoidance pills that have been given to everyone were the living evil seeds that Gao Fan had refined using the cauldron of common life. Through these living evil seeds, Gao Fan had successfully absorbed everyone's essence blood and life force, using them as fuel for the cauldron of common life to help him control the lunar true water. The crowd began to panic. The powerful and amiable senior brother Gao, whom they could rely on daily, had suddenly changed. It left everyone at a loss. "Senior brother Gao, what do you want to do?" Li Chenxi asked with a trembling voice. She had never expected that there would be a day when Gao Fan would become so unfamiliar. Perhaps she had never truly recognized him. Gao Fan smiled. Although he had been in a fierce battle, his clean white linen robe fluttered in the wind. He was still in high spirits and had an indescribable carefree and uninhibited aura. His smile was still so approachable, amiable, and gentle. Gao Fan looked at the crowd and said with a smile, "I've said it before. I'm not being humble, but I really want to thank all of you. Without your help, I would not have been able to control the lunar true water." He raised his head and said in admiration, "Lunar true water, one of the 6 great true waters in the world. Such power is truly extraordinary." With this lunar true water, Gao Fan believed that he would definitely become a legend. He was no longer a rookie with potential, no longer a star of tomorrow, but a true proud son of heaven, a powerhouse. Facing the shocked and angry gazes of Lichensi and company, Gao Fan shook his head slightly and said with a friendly smile, "I know that you might not understand or accept it, but if you know in the afterlife, you will eventually understand that your sacrifice is meaningful because you have witnessed the beginning of a legend." Yang Qing's face turned green as he clenched and relaxed his fists before clenching them again. Lin Feng glanced at him. "What do you want to do?" Yang Qing bit her lips and lowered her voice. I actually know a type of magic. It's the forbidden magic of my sect, the Mountain Flood Curse. Once the Mountain Flood incantation is used, one will instantly release all of one's magic power, just like a mountain flood erupting. Yang Qing looked like she was struggling, but using the flood incantation usually causes great harm to the body. Now that I've been hit by Brother Gao, by Gao Fan's demon technique, I don't know if I can still use the flood incantation. Lin Feng shook his head and said with a smile, "This kind of magic that explodes one's potential usually injures oneself first before injuring the enemy. With your current physical condition, I'm afraid you'll die from the backlash before you can cast the magic." Yang Qing's face paled. Lin Feng patted him on the shoulder. "Don't worry, there's no need for that." Gao Fan looked at Lin Feng and said, "I'm guessing that Gao Long died at your hands? At the very least, his death is related to you?" Lin Feng's expression was calm as he smiled. "You want to avenge him?" "Of course." Gao Fan smiled. "Of course not." He shook his head. "That rash and arrogant idiot. He relied on his master's favor. Other than causing trouble, what else can he do? I have to deal with the aftermath for him every time. I really want to thank you for killing him. It saved me a lot of trouble." Yang Qing, Li Chenxi, and the rest felt a chill. They could hear the meaning behind Gao Fan's words. If Gao Long did not die previously, he would have died at Gao Fan's hands sooner or later. This person was actually ruthless to such an extent. The common people's furnace art was an evil cultivation technique. It refined the blood of the common people and was extremely vicious. If Gao Fan secretly cultivated it and people found out, it would definitely cause public outrage. Everyone present knew his secret. No matter what, Gao Fan had to silence them. Gao Fan smiled and said, "Don't worry, I won't let anyone feel pain." Even at this time, Gao Fan was still elegant. His voice was gentle and made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. "You should take care of yourself first." Lin Feng smiled in his heart. He did not say anything. First, he used the Heaven Cage sigil to seal the evil spirit that was causing trouble in his body. He instantly cut off Gao Fan's common people's furnace art from extracting blood from his body. Following that, Lin Feng extended his right hand. Like he was waving a knife, he gently waved it downwards, as if he was cutting something. Gao Fan, who was in midair, suddenly trembled. He looked down in shock and saw a scene that left him dumbfounded. It was as if there was an invisible barrier that suddenly cut off the red threads that connected everyone to Gao Fan. The barrier was formless and there was nothing in the air. However, there were dozens of red threads that had been cut off and no longer existed. Who did this? Gao Fan stared with his eyes wide open. He could no longer maintain his calm expression. His first reaction was to immediately kill the other party and eliminate all distractions. But very quickly, he discovered something that made him even more frightened. The common people's furnace which had lost a portion of its blood supply, was greatly weakened. It was actually unable to suppress the lunar true water in the furnace. The lunar true water started to cause trouble in Gao Fan's body, wanting to break out of the seal. Gao Fan was shocked. He hurriedly activated the common people's furnace art. However, he did not have enough blood. The common people's furnace had already started to shake, and some places had become weak. The lunar true water was full of spirituality. It charged towards the weak areas of the common people's furnace. Lin Feng looked at the dozens of red threads that were still connected to Gao Fan's body. He frowned. The new spell is still not perfect. It has only cut off a quarter of the red threads. Wait, what's with this guy's expression? Lin Feng looked at Gao Fan in shock. He saw that the handsome senior brother Gao was frowning. His face was red, and he was sweating profusely. What demeanor, what bearing, it was all thrown away. The veins on his forehead were bulging. This guy, why does he look like he's constipated? Lin Feng's eyes spun. He was slightly surprised. If Gao Fan knew what Lin Feng was thinking, he would definitely spit out 3 liters of blood. How was he constipated? On the contrary, he was bitterly enduring the impact of the lunar true water on his body. It was a coincidence. The red threads that were cut off by Lin Feng were all connected to the bottom of the common people's furnace. Now that it had lost the blood supply from the red threads, the bottom of the furnace became thinner and thinner. It became the breakthrough point for the lunar true water. Gao Fan's body merged with the common people's furnace. The furnace cover was his head, and the furnace body was his torso. The bottom of the furnace wasn't Gao Fan's feet. His 4 limbs were the 4 legs of the furnace. The bottom of the furnace body was his, the place between his buttocks. Gao Fan tried his best to use the blood provided by the other red threads to repair the weak bottom of the furnace. However, the common people's furnace art had its own rules. Wherever the red threads were connected to, the blood would only be supplied there. No. Gao Fan had never been as terrified as he was now. He also never hated this rule of the common people's furnace art as much as he did now. He used all the magic power in his body to repair the bottom of the furnace. However, the common people's furnace art had its own system. It wasn't something that Gao Fan's magic power could replace. Boom! The lunar true water spun in Gao Fan's body. Once again, it gathered all its power and attacked the bottom of the furnace. No! Gao Fan, who was in midair, let out a heart-wrenching scream. It was so shrill that it was hard to believe that it came from a human. Everyone present was stunned. They stared at Gao Fan in midair. They saw his buttocks suddenly explode. Blood sprayed all over the sky. His scream was incomparably tragic. After the scream, Gao Fan's voice suddenly stopped. It was as if someone had cut it with a pair of scissors. Only a small portion of his voice was left trembling in the air. It wasn't that Gao Fan wasn't in pain. On the contrary, what he felt was the greatest pain he had ever felt in his life. It was so painful that he could only suck in cold air. He couldn't make a sound. Gao Fan couldn't control his body anymore. He fell from midair like a broken sack. He landed heavily on the ground and raised a cloud of dust. The dust and blood stuck together. Gao Fan was no longer as handsome as before. He lay on the ground and couldn't stop twitching. Looking at his pitiful state, everyone present could only feel their buttocks tighten. The center of their buttocks was burning with pain. Lin Feng also looked at the scene in front of him with his mouth agape. Damn, it hurts just looking at it. He swore to the heavens and the earth that Lin Feng really just wanted to destroy Gao Fan's common people's furnace. I really didn't do it on purpose. Chapter 120. Gao Fan's chrysanthemum exploded, turning into a sunflower. Fresh blood splattered in the air. A streak of green light rushed out, but it turned into a green rain of light, gently falling on everyone's bodies. So disgusting. Lin Feng curled his lips and avoided the green light. However, after the green light landed on the others, it quickly disappeared. Lin Feng's heart moved. Even though it broke through the furnace of people's lives, Gao Fan's refinement still had a certain effect in the end. That enormous amount of lunar true water was condensed into a smaller amount of essence. The lunar true water was rich in spirituality. After breaking through the common people's furnace technique, it chose to enter the human body to recuperate. Most of the green light was just a smokescreen. Only this green light was the true essence of the true water. I just don't know who is the lucky one. Lin Feng's gaze swept across the crowd as he pondered. Unfortunately, the lunar true water had already entered a dormant state. Even if a large amount of true fire of the sun appeared in front of it, it would not move. I'm going to sleep. I can't be bothered with you. Who cares who you are? This was the current state of the lunar true water. Gao Fan clearly realized this. Although he was lying on the ground in pain, he still tried to raise his head. His wolf-like eyes shone with a green light as he stared at the crowd. Only then did the others come back to their senses. They looked at each other and instantly cheered. This is great. This Gao Fan is being devoured by his own demonic technique. He overestimated himself. He forcefully used a technique that he couldn't control. This is the result. You still dare to stare at us so viciously. I will dig out your eyes. Those who are unjust are doomed to die. Gao Fan, do you understand now? Beat him to death. What difference is there between his actions and those of a demon? Before the common people's furnace technique could be completed, it was interrupted by Lin Feng, causing the entire furnace to explode. The life form's essence blood that it absorbed was automatically returned to the original owner. The people who had just recovered from the shock gradually recovered their spirit and strength. Immediately, they became enraged. Yang Qing looked at the restless crowd in front of her and didn't know what to do. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. A bunch of ignorant people who haven't figured out their situation yet. Yang Qing looked back at Lin Feng in surprise. Lin Feng smiled and said, "You're here." As soon as his voice fell, 3 powerful magic power fluctuations appeared nearby. Gao Fan, why are you in such a sorry state? A voice suddenly rang out, like a roaring gale, whistling through the air, instantly suppressing the clamor of the crowd. Lin Feng looked into the distance and saw a young cultivator in green robes appear on the mountain ridge. There was a frivolous smile on his face as he looked down at Gao Fan, who was lying on the ground, gloating. Gao Fan's body trembled, but she didn't speak. "My good senior brother, how did you end up in this situation?" "Ha ha 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 ha." On another mountain peak, a fatty in the same green robes looked at Gao Fan and laughed. On a mountain peak opposite him, there was a skinny cultivator in green robes. He also looked at Gao Fan and laughed. "Gao Fan, why didn't I know that you liked this before? But that person of yours is too rough. He even played with blood. Ha ha." The 3 people formed a triangular formation, standing on 3 mountain peaks, faintly surrounding the crowd. They were all gloating and making fun of Gao Fan. But the others couldn't laugh, because these 3 cultivators in green robes were the direct disciples of the Wind God sect, Gao Fan Sr. and Junior brothers. More importantly, these 3 people were the same as Gao Fan, Middle Stage Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators. Gao Fan gritted her teeth and squeezed out 3 names from her mouth. Qin Tao, Lu Sudong, Li Xiang. Fatty Qin Tao smiled and said, "Gao Fan, I rarely admire people among my senior and junior brothers. But facing you now, I have to say that I admire you. Not only did you master the ancient secret method, you even almost subdued the lunar true water. You are really scheming and have good methods." Gao Fan's heart sank to the bottom. He had not been on good terms with Qin Tao and the other 2 for a long time. Originally, none of them was his opponent in a one-on-one fight. When the 3 of them attacked, he could barely escape with the flowing wind robe, a magic tool of the golden elixir period. But now that he was seriously injured, he couldn't even use 10% of his strength. Facing these 3 people, he was like a fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Although the wound on his but almost made him faint, Gao Fan still forced himself to stay awake and quickly calculated the pros and cons. "What do you want?" Gao Fan asked with difficulty. Qin Tao and the other 2 looked at each other and laughed. Lu Sudong, who was as skinny as a bamboo pole, smiled and said, "Don't play dumb. Gao Fan, you know what we want. If your mind is blurred from the pain, I can help you to wake up." After a moment of silence, Gao Fan said in a low voice, "Okay, I will tell you the location of the Kuan Peng's treasure, but it will be at least a few years before it opens. Otherwise, even the Yuanying stage old ancestor can't open the outer restriction." Lin Feng, who was sitting on the ground, heard this, and his ears moved slightly. The Kuan Peng was a legendary, immemorial divine beast on the same level as the Tao Tai, dragon, and phoenix. It could transform into a fish or a bird. When it transformed into a fish, it was equivalent to a continent in the sea. When it transformed into a bird, it could travel 90,000 miles with a flap of its wings. The treasure left by the Kuan Peng, even if it was not a pure-blooded Kuan Peng, but a mixed-blood descendant, it was still quite amazing. Lu Sudong's thin face puffed up, and he said with a smile, "We already know this, otherwise, why would you wait until now? You would have gone treasure hunting long ago." Li Xiang, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke like a howling gale. "Just this thing is not enough to exchange for your life." Gao Fan's expression was gloomy as she let out a long breath. She slowly said, "The lunar true water is still here. It has not returned underground." With that said, Qin Tao, Li Xiang, and Lu Sudong's eyes lit up. Gao Fan raised her finger with difficulty and pointed at Lin Feng and company. "The essence of the true water is hidden in these people's bodies, secretly recuperating. However, I am not sure who it is, so you will have to find it yourselves." Fatty Qin Tao laughed loudly as the fat on his cheeks trembled. "That's simple. Just kill them all." Li Chenxi and company were immediately in an uproar. "Fight out with them," Li Chenxi shouted. The other two early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators looked at each other and nodded. They led the charge at Li Xiang and company. At this moment, rather than waiting for death, it was better to risk their lives to break out of the encirclement. The group of cultivators followed closely behind their three Foundation establishment companions. They charged together, hoping to fight for a way out. Yang Qing opened his mouth, but he finally swallowed the words he wanted to say. He wanted to charge with the group, but he realized that his legs were like lead. Lin Feng remained sitting in his original spot, motionless. He looked at Yang Qing and said with a smile, "At this moment, even if we fight, we might not die. If we don't fight, we will die. What is there to be afraid of?" Yang Qing squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. "Two cowards, are you just sitting there waiting for death?" Li Chenxi turned her head and glared angrily at them as she cursed. Lin Feng had a composed expression as he smiled and pointed ahead. "We are about to collide." "Oh!" Li Chenxi was stunned as she hurriedly turned her head. She saw a gigantic wind wall blocking in front of her. She had nearly collided with it. This wind wall was different from the past. It was made of countless sharp wind blades. They were densely stacked together, forming a daunting barrier of death. Countless wind blades intertwined, forming a gigantic wall that could both attack and defend. It blocked in front of Li Chenxi and company. Wind God Sect Mystic Technique, Thousand-Edge Wind Scale Wall. Li Xiang had his hand behind his back as he looked proudly at Li Chenxi and company. "I'll give you a chance to attack." Li Chenxi was enraged. "Let's see how much you are worth." With a gesture of her slender finger, a bright sword beam streaked across the air and slashed at Li Xiang's 1,000-feather wind scale wall. The thousands of wind blades that formed the 1,000-feather wind scale wall rapidly circulated. They streaked across Li Chenxi's flying sword like a torrential storm, emitting ear-piercing scraping sounds. Li Chenxi's face turned pale. Her flying sword was damaged, so she felt immense pressure as her mind was connected to it. Fatty Qin Tao chuckled. "Li Xiang, your 1,000-feather wind scale wall spell is becoming more and more pure." His smile gradually turned cold as he looked at Lu Sudong. "Let's attack as well. If not, we will lose to Li Xiang." "That's exactly what I was thinking." Lu Sudong's thin hands came together in front of his chest as he formed a seal. Chapter 121. Lu Sudong put his hands together and made a hand seal. In an instant, a strong wind blew and sand and rocks flew, covering the sky. Exclamations came from the crowd. Wind god Sek's flowing wind, flying sand spell. Other than Li Chenxi, the other two early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators looked at each other, and one of them shouted, "Watch me break you." With a loud shout, this person's magic power surged, and his entire body seemed to grow taller by half. The muscles that were exposed outside his clothes pulsed violently, filled with explosive power. He was a cultivator who cultivated in the martial arts of the physical body. He charged into the range of Lu Sudong's flowing wind, flying sand spell, and immediately his vision turned black and yellow. The strong wind and sand constantly hit his body. My fleshly body is strong enough to withstand his spells and charge through the sandstorm. Once I get close, even if he's in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm, he won't be able to withstand my iron fist. The cultivator made up his mind and charged straight ahead. However, he soon felt that something was wrong. He had already charged at least a few hundred meters, but he still had not passed through the sandstorm. Next, he discovered a horrifying fact. No matter which direction he went, no matter how far he went in the same direction, he was still within the range of the sandstorm. No matter how he walked, he could not get out. And yet, the power of the sandstorm was getting stronger and stronger. After a long period of attack, his body could not hold on any longer. Outside, Lu Sudong laughed loudly. My flowing wind flying sand spell is not known for its offensive power, but once you enter my sandstorm, you can forget about leaving it alive. The other cultivators that did not step into the sandstorm turned pale. Another early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator in the group shouted, "Don't be too proud. As long as I don't enter your sandstorm, you can't do anything to me." He made a hand seal and injected all his magic power into the ground under his feet. The ground in front of this cultivator immediately cracked inch by inch. Amidst the rumbling, soil and rocks were flipped up as if there was an earthquake. Under everyone's gazes, a stone giant that was nearly 10 meters tall rose from the ground in front of him. It had broad shoulders and a round waist, and its body was thick and strong. The stone giant let out a soundless roar. Although there was no sound, the powerful magic power shook the souls of the Qi refinement cultivators. With a silent roar, the stone giant madly rushed towards Lu Sudong. The earth and rocks on its body tilted, and every step it took left a deep pit. Lu Sudong was tall and skinny, but in front of this 10-meter-tall behemoth, he looked like a tiny dot. However, Lu Sudong did not care about the earthen giant. He snorted disdainfully. But before he could speak, Qin Tao beat him to it and said with a smile, "This should be mine." As he spoke, a black hurricane appeared in front of him and revolved around Qin Tao. The flesh on Qin Tao's face trembled as he sneered. "My spiraling gale isn't as complicated as Li Xiang and Lu Sudong. I'll give you a quick one." The black hurricane was like a black dragon, roaring as it pounced towards the stone giant. As it flew, the black hurricane twisted violently, spiraling forward. At the very top, an unstoppable and terrifying power appeared. Qin Tao's spiraling, earth-piercing wind spell was like a drill that smashed into the earth giant's body. It kept spinning and drilled into the earth giant like a hot knife through butter. The earth giant was immediately smashed into pieces. The 10-meter-tall stone giant collapsed, turning into rubble and dirt. The early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator controlling the stone giant let out a tragic cry. He felt a splitting headache as he knelt on the ground. Although the spiraling, earth-piercing wind did not directly attack him, it immediately dispersed the magic power that he had infused into the stone giant, breaking his spell. Magic power was born from the soul, so it immediately injured his soul. The cultivators on Yang Qing's and Li Chenxi's side all had ashen faces. Be it their cultivation realm or the power of their spells, they were completely defeated by the other side. Fear surfaced on Li Chenxi's face as she gritted her teeth and took out a small black ball from her storage bag. She threw it at Li Xiang's 1,000-feather wind scale wall. Yang Qing's eyes lit up. Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt was a one-time consumable type of magic item. It could only be used once, and after it was used, it would produce rolling lightning to attack the enemy. However, such a consumable type of magic item had an astonishing offensive power. Li Chenxi's Thunderbolt had a power that matched a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator's attack. It was one of her treasures, and unless the situation was dire, Li Chenxi would never use it. The others also felt a sense of hope. As long as they could break through Li Xiang's 1,000-feather wind scale wall, they would tear an opening in the encirclement, giving them a chance to escape. When the Thunderbolt landed on the 1,000-feather wind scale wall, lightning exploded. The rolling lightning constantly struck the 1,000-feather wind scale wall, causing it to tremble. However, before Li Chenxi and company could reveal a smile, a scene that made them despair happened. Li Xiang sneered as he changed his hand seals. The thousands of wind blades that formed the 1,000-feather wind scale wall exploded at that moment. The wind blades danced in the sky, tearing the Thunderbolt's lightning to pieces. The 1,000-feather wind scale wall was only used for defense, but at that moment, it suddenly changed from defense to offense, revealing its true fangs. The overwhelming wind blades filled everyone's field of vision, turning into a storm of death that came crashing down on everyone's faces. Li Chenxi was the first to bear the brunt of it. Countless bloody wounds appeared on her body as she fell to the ground. The other cultivators were bitterly resisting the indiscriminate bombardment of the thousands of wind blades. Those with lower cultivation levels were sliced into pieces by the wind blades. It was an extremely tragic sight. After withstanding the storm with great difficulty, everyone present was in a sorry state. They were covered in injuries. At this moment, Lu Sudong laughed loudly. A figure was thrown out of the sandstorm caused by the flowing wind flying sand technique. It was the adept that had barged into the sandstorm. Although he was not dead, his body was riddled with holes from the sand and strong winds. It was a tragic sight. The three strongest Foundation establishment cultivators on their side were all seriously injured and had completely lost the ability to resist. Everyone's hearts were shrouded in a dark cloud of despair. Someone hissed, "This is the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain. Your wind god sect came here to commit a massacre. Do you think that none of the sects in the northern foothills will stand up to uphold justice?" Qin Tao and company looked at each other before bursting into laughter at the same time. Justice. Qin Tao raised his hands and said with a sinister smile, "Do you think any of you here can live to send the news out? If you want justice, fine, I will give it to you. My fists, my magical powers, are justice." After saying that, Qin Tao clasped his hands together, and another pitch-black tornado coiled around him. If magical power and supernatural powers are justice, then your justice is far from enough. At this moment, a calm and indifferent voice suddenly sounded, interrupting Qin Tao's laughter. Qin Tao's eyes flashed fiercely. Li Xiang and Lu Sudong also looked coldly at the source of the voice, including the seriously injured Li Chenxi and even the dispirited Gao Fan and Fire Crow young master. Everyone's eyes were staring blankly at the young man sitting cross-legged under the tree. Lin Feng's expression was calm. Silently, he sat there without any intention of getting up. Qin Tao took a deep breath. His fat face was expressionless. "Oh? Then tell me, what's considered enough?" Lin Feng gave a leisurely smile. "For example, someone like me." Li Chenxi shouted, "You rascal! Why are you trying to be a hero at this time? Do you think you are not dying fast enough?" Everyone reacted at this moment and looked at Lin Feng as though he was a madman. When we were fighting Fire Crow, he was hiding at the back. Why did he suddenly appear now? Even if you want to be a hero, you shouldn't be doing it like this. He is just courting death. Shoo, lower your voice. Isn't it good that he is attracting attention for us? Maybe the three criminals will be careless, and we will have a chance to escape. That's right, that's right. This way, he can at least make some contribution. Ignoring the discussions of the crowd, Lin Feng maintained a calm, and peaceful expression. Silently, he sat cross-legged in his original spot. Qin Tao sneered, "What nonsense! I'm here to test your capabilities. Let's see what qualifications you have to act mysterious here." Just as Lin Feng was about to speak, he suddenly sensed something. With a faint smile, he decided to shut his mouth. Not only did he not speak, Lin Feng even closed his eyes. He sat there with his eyes closed to rest. There was an uproar. What the hell is he doing? Is he closing his eyes to wait for death? Chapter 122. Lin Feng suddenly felt something. He smiled and did not speak anymore. What was even more exaggerated was that he even closed his eyes and sat there to rest. His action immediately caused the already anxious Li Chenxi and the others to explode. I thought he had some ability, so he just said a few harsh words and wanted to die quickly. So unlucky. It gave me some hope for nothing. You are too stupid to have hope for such a person. Yang Qing moved to Lin Feng's side and whispered, "What is going on?" The corner of Lin Feng's mouth revealed a hint of a smile, casually saying, "Relax, just watch." Qin Tao stared at Lin Feng and said with a sneer, "My mana and magical powers are not enough? I will let you have a good look today. Who do you want to have a good look?" A voice suddenly came from afar and asked with a smile. When the voice first came, it was still very far away, but before the voice died away, it was already in front of them. Qin Tao, Li Xiang, and Lu Sudong's expressions changed at the same time. They saw a youth dressed in black appear on a mountain in the distance. He had a grass stem in his mouth, and his hands were behind his head. He was looking at them with a smile. "Master said that we don't need to be polite." Another clear voice sounded. A youth dressed in a green robe stood on another mountain. He had a long sword at his waist, and he was tall and straight. He exuded an upright and righteous aura. On the mountain opposite him, there was a delicate little boy who was only 5 or 6 years old. He smiled and said, "How about we each take one? Third senior brother, hold the line for us." The little boy was at least a few hundred meters away from Qin Tao and the others, but his crisp, childish voice clearly traveled into everyone's ears. The waves of mana contained in his voice caused everyone's hair to stand on end. He's actually a foundation establishment cultivator at such a young age. Are you kidding me? The three of them stood in the east, west, and north. At this moment, a man and a beast appeared on the southern mountain. The demonic beast was huge. It had a body like a deer and a head like a sparrow. It had horns and a snake tail. Qin Tao and the others were stunned. Fei Lian. On the back of the Fei Lian beast sat a skinny young man with a determined look on his face. It was Wang Lin. Hearing Xiao Budian's words, Wang Lin smiled slightly. "Let's wait and see." Spitting out the stalk in his mouth, Xiao Yin stared at Qin Tao and smiled. "Fatty, you're very arrogant, aren't you?" Qin Tao's gaze swept across Xiao Yan's group, and he sneered. "3 little brats in the early stage of foundation establishment. You dare to act rashly in front of me." Upon hearing that Xiao Yin and company were only at the early stage foundation establishment realm, Li Chenxi and company, who had some hope in their hearts, fell into disappointment once again. It was 3 against 3, but in the end, the 3 early-stage foundation establishment cultivators were all defeated by the other party. Right now, Xiao Yin and the others were only at the early stage of foundation establishment, which made it hard for them to be confident. Someone couldn't help but complain. Just now, there was a madman bragging, and now there are a few brats who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. They're all here to die. Qin Tao stared at Xiao Yin and the others with a murderous glint in his eyes. Spiraling, earth-piercing wind. With a loud shout from Qin Tao, a black tornado rose into the air and spun constantly. Without waiting for Xiao Yin to make a move, Xiao Budian jumped down the mountain and pounced at Qin Tao. He said with a smile, "Eldest senior brother, leave this fatty to me." "You." Xiao Yin shook his head and laughed. He looked at Zhu Yi. "Second junior brother, let's do it too." Zhu Yi smiled slightly. "These ferocious and stubborn people should die here." He unsheathed the sword at his waist and flew down the mountain. Lu Sudong snorted coldly. "Little bastard, you don't know the meaning of death." His skinny cheeks puffed up as he put his palms together and formed a hand seal. Immediately, his magic power began to circulate rapidly, setting off a boundless gale that blew sand and stones into the sky. He wanted to engulf Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi's expression was calm as he stared at the sandstorm created by Lu Sudong's flowing wind flying sand technique. He nodded and said, "So, it's an illusion technique. It confuses people's minds and causes them to lose their sense of direction. Then, their strength will be constantly depleted and they can only wait for death. Unfortunately, this illusion array of yours is only a small trick. How can the light of a firefly compete with the brilliance of the sun and moon?" Zhu Yi held the long sword behind his back with his right hand and formed a seal with his left hand. Dark mandala array, open. Lu Sudong didn't have time to do anything else. Black light soared into the sky and enveloped him within the 100-meter radius of the ground. In the eyes of the onlookers, it was a black light that suddenly rose from the ground and formed a hemispherical light screen. It covered the ground and swallowed Zhu Yi, Lu Sudong, and the sandstorm created by the flowing wind flying sand technique. As soon as Lu Sudong was shrouded by the black light, he immediately felt that his perception of the outside world was completely deprived. In his panic, Lu Sudong could only summon the sandstorm and wrap it around him, hoping that it could protect him. In the dark mandala array, as the caster, Zhu Yi's perception was not affected at all. Seeing Lu Sudong summon the sandstorm to protect himself, Zhu Yi did not care. His right hand slashed out twice. One was the lake sword truth, and the other was the wind sword truth. With the wind above the swamp, it formed a trigram of wind above and swamp below. With the wind above the swamp, it was the fortune divination. A handsome bird came out of its cage and easily escaped. The sharp sword Qi tore through Lu Sudong's sandstorm defense and pierced through his body. The darkness dissipated and Lu Sudong let out a scream as he slumped to the ground. Zhu Yi gently flicked the blade of his sword, producing a clear hum. With a flip of his hand, he sheathed his sword. He had an extremely elegant demeanor. Li Chenxi and company stared with widened eyes. Seeing this shocking scene, they were completely speechless. And on the other side, Xiao Budian giggled against Qin Tao's spiraling, earth-piercing wind. His two white hands were raised into the air. His left hand howled like a gale, while his right hand roared like lightning. Xiao Budian's palms came together and released infinite wind and lightning. The wind and lightning were born, and they mutually supported each other. In a blink of an eye, it expanded to a soul-stirring extent. Qin Tao's spiraling, earth-piercing wind was immediately devoured by the fused lightning as it struggled incessantly. Xiao Budian chuckled and casually sent out another bolt of lightning that merged with the infinite wind and lightning. The wind and lightning reached equilibrium once again, and just like that, it devoured Qin Tao's spiraling, earth-piercing wind. Qin Tao's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. His throat felt like someone had stuffed an entire egg. He gurgled, but he could not say a complete sentence. As for Xiao Budian's infinite wind and lightning, it was as if it had eaten a great tonic. Its momentum became even more terrifying as it roared towards Qin Tao. Qin Tao's massive body was sent flying by the infinite wind and lightning. He flew out like a kite with a broken string and slammed heavily into the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Li Xiang stared dumbfoundedly at his two fellow disciples. In a blink of an eye, they had been beaten like dead dogs. He turned his gaze toward Xiaoyan. The black-clothed youth chuckled and said, "It's our turn." As he said that, his right hand formed a strange fist seal, and he smashed it at Li Xiang's head. Li Xiang roared angrily as millions of wind blades gathered in front of him, forming a 1,000-feather wind scale wall. At that moment, he no longer wished to defeat his enemy. He only hoped that his spell could block Xiaoyan's attack. He believed that he could do it. The 1,000-feather wind scale wall that completely gave up on attacking had an astounding defense. It can't be broken. Li Chenxi covered her mouth. Her thunderbolt could not break the 1,000-feather wind scale wall, so how could the black-clothed youth do it with his body of flesh and blood? Against Li Xiang's stubborn defense, Xiao Yin chuckled. He did not have any intention of changing his attack as he punched out. The shockwaves of collapse and collapse were unleashed in layers. Li Xiang's defense, which he believed to be impregnable, suddenly crumbled like paper. Thousands of wind blades only had one word in front of Xiao Yan's 8 trigrams collapse. Shatter. Constantly shattering. All of them shattered. Not a single one was left. Li Xiang stared dumbfoundedly at Xiao Yan's iron fist approaching from afar. It became bigger and bigger until it filled his entire vision. One punch was enough to split his face in two. Lu Sudong, Qin Tao, Li Xiang, the 3 Wind God Sect core disciples, mid-stage foundation establishment cultivators, were completely defeated in front of Xiao Yin and company. Li Chenxi and company were completely petrified. They felt like their brains were insufficient to comprehend the situation. Lin Feng, who had been sitting calmly and leisurely like he was watching a show, finally stood up from the ground and chuckled. This is what's called fair. His expression changed slightly as a strange smile appeared on his face. Oh, you are quite tenacious. Gao Fan, who had been sprawled on the ground with her buttocks mangled like a dead dog, suddenly struggled to fly up. She charged towards the southern mountain peak where Wang Lin was. Chapter 123. Gao Fan, whose chrysanthemum had exploded into a sunflower and was twitching on the ground like a dead dog, suddenly struggled to get up and rushed towards Wang Lin. Gao Fan's face was contorted in pain, and his eyes were bloodshot. He no longer had the demeanor of a senior brother Gao. Despite the pain, Gao Fan still remained calm. He accurately targeted the weakest of the 4, Wang Lin, as his breakthrough point. Yang Qing was shocked. Watch out! Gao Fan was heavily injured, but he was still a mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator. Wang Lin's cultivation was no higher than Qi refinement stage 5. How could he be Gao Fan's opponent? Gao Fan was obviously thinking the same thing. As she charged at Wang Lin, she yelled, "Fei Lian, help me!" He had already recognized the Fei Lian that Wang Lin was riding on as the spirit beast that his cousin Gao Long had obtained from the Wind God sect. Gao Fan usually didn't think much of the Fei Lian. If it dared to block his way, he would just kill it. However, he was heavily injured and couldn't use even half of his strength. He could only hope that the Fei Lian would fight against Wang Lin and help him. Hearing this, Wang Lin's expression remained calm. He lowered his head and glanced at Fei Lian. The Fei Lian heard Gao Fan shout, but it didn't even look at him. It secretly glanced at Lin Feng, who was standing in the valley with his hands behind his back. Lin Feng looked at the Fei Lian with a smile, and the Fei Lian couldn't help but shiver. Fei Lian turned around and glanced at Gao Fan with a very human-like expression on his face. Everyone could see that the Fei Lian's expression meant only one thing. Disdain. Do you think I'm stupid? I'll help you. If I help you, I'll be dead. The Fei Lian looked at Gao Fan with disdain. It then shrunk its neck and secretly glanced at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was very satisfied with its reaction. He smiled and nodded. The Fei Lian was elated. Gao Fan also saw the change in the Fei Lian's expression. He was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. How could a genius like him be looked down upon by a beast? Bastard! Gao Fan was fuming. He didn't care about his injuries and forcefully channeled his mana. Tornado slash. Under the surge of magic power, Gao Fan's chrysanthemum exploded once again. Fresh blood spurted out, causing Gao Fan to howl in pain. However, he still managed to complete the spell with all his might. 2 tornadoes flew towards Wang Lin and Fei Lian. The tornadoes clashed against each other, forming a huge wind blade that slashed towards Wang Lin. Under the heavy injuries, the power of Gao Fan's tornado chop was already very weak. It was far from being comparable to the time when he fought with young Master Fire Crow, but the power was still not something that Wang Lin, who was at the Qi refinement stage, could withstand. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. With his current cultivation, he could only use the underworld finger once. If he used the reincarnation finger, he might be able to block Gao Fan's tornado slash, but he wouldn't be able to counterattack. Wang Lin patted the Fei Lian's head and chuckled. It's time for you to show off. Master has seen everything you've done. Among the martial brothers, Wang Lin's current level is relatively low. Back then when Lin Feng bestowed Fei Lian to him, it was with the intention of protecting him. The Fei Lian's body trembled. Then it regained its spirit and let out a long howl. Two tornadoes appeared in front of Fei Lian, and as they ground against each other, they transformed into a huge wind blade that was over 100 feet tall. This wind beast had also used the tornado slash spell, which came from the same source as Gao Fan. It was exactly the same as Gao Fan. However, its tornado slash was much more powerful than the one that could seriously injure Gao Fan. Gao Fan's eyes widened in anger. The wind blade he created was shattered by the Fei Lian's wind blade. You bastard who betrayed your master. One day I'll skin you alive. Gao Fan was so angry that he started cursing, but halfway through, his voice suddenly got stuck. Wang Lin, who was on the Fei Lian's back, looked at him coldly and emotionlessly. Wang Lin stretched out his right hand and pointed at Gao Fan. Myriad heaven underworld finger, silent destruction. Without warning, the black gas lingering in the dead zone shot up from under Gao Fan's feet and enveloped him. Gao Fan's golden elixir period magic tool, the flowing wind robe, was damaged by the sun's real fire. It couldn't provide any protection for him. The endless death aura crazily attacked Gao Fan's heavily injured body. Gao Fan's face was ashen and covered in a thick layer of death. He could only use his magic power to resist and struggle. Heavily injured, he didn't have any energy left to break out of the dead zone. Yang Qing, Li Qinxi, and the rest looked at this scene dumbfounded. They felt that what happened in front of them had completely overturned their understanding. Wang Lin's silent destruction finger was sudden and strangely domineering. It made everyone shudder. They asked themselves, if this finger was directed at me, would I be able to block it? Upon thinking of this, most people felt a chill run down their spines. They did not dare to think further. However, they quickly cheered up. They looked at Xiao Yin and company with beaming eyes. Almost in a hopeless situation of certain death, a savior suddenly appeared, turning the tide and helping them escape with their lives. This kind of great ups and downs made everyone's mind tremble. Looking at Xiao Yin and the others, they were extremely excited. Domineering, this is what you call domineering. A male cultivator looked at Xiao Yin with envy. He did not even look at such a powerful 1,000-feather windscale wall. He shattered it with one punch. It's just too domineering. Li Qinxi's eyes lit up. The power of one punch is stronger than lightning. It's really powerful. The other female cultivators looked at Zhu Yi with infatuation. It's too cool. He easily destroyed the other party's flowing wind flying sand technique. There was not a hint of smoke or fire. It's just too cool. Gao Fan can't compare either. A female cultivator could not help but say. She immediately incurred the disdain of her companions. How can Gao Fan compare to this senior brother? More people place their attention on the tiny guy. It's too terrifying. Is this little guy really human? He's only 5 or 6 years old, but he already has the strength of a foundation establishment cultivator. Could he be the cub of an ancient ferocious beast? He has such a high cultivation level at such a young age. How impressive will he be when he grows up? Limitless. This is what it means to have a limitless future. What genius, what monster. They're all trash in front of this little guy. Shoo, softer. Don't let the little guy shout randomly. If he hears you, do you want to die? The person who spoke in front hurriedly covered his mouth. However, he could not help but praise. He's really too strong. He looked at Wang Lin, who was on the Fei Lian beast. That person is not simple either. Although he is only at the Qi refinement realm, he was able to suppress Gao Fan in one move. Even if Gao Fan is seriously injured, he is not someone a cultivator at the 5th level of Qi refinement can deal with. Someone suddenly exclaimed. They address each other as senior and junior brothers. Could they have been taught by the same master? When Li Chenxi heard this, she thought carefully and said with certainty, "It can't be wrong. Their dermic powers and auras are extremely similar. They should be cultivating in the same dermic technique." She looked towards Xiao Yan's group of 4, her pretty face full of praise. Just what kind of expert is it to be able to teach these for disciples? Don't be fooled by their low cultivation levels. The strongest is only at the early foundation establishment realm. But if they continue to develop at this rate, their futures will be limitless. Everyone nodded. Yes, yes. When Lin Feng heard this, he could not help but reveal a smile. Yang Qing's gaze moved between Lin Feng and Xiao Yan. She connected it with what Lin Feng had said before and vaguely thought of something. She immediately turned pale with fright. She looked at Lin Feng in shock and was speechless. Li Chenxi also noticed Lin Feng's smile. She snorted coldly. What are you laughing at? You don't seem to care. You don't have any ability, yet you like to brag. If not for these 4 senior brothers, you would already be a dead man. Lin Feng said indifferently that might not be the case. The people around him immediately objected. He's still being so stubborn. He should have suffered a little. As they spoke, the crowd gradually quietened down. This was because they realized that Xiao Yan and company were walking over. Li Chenxi hurriedly tidied her dress and went forward with her best appearance and bearing. Thank you, 4 senior brothers, for saving my life. I wonder what your names are and where your masters are. Halfway through her sentence, Li Chenxi could not continue. Her gaze gradually turned dull and her eyeballs stopped moving. She stared straight at Xiao Yan and company. What did she see? She saw Xiao Yan and company, who had just displayed their prowess and saved everyone, come in front of Lin Feng. Disciples greet master. The 4 people arrived in front of Lin Feng, kneeling down in front of Lin Feng together like they were pushing mountains and jade pillars. Even a Fei Lian beast followed behind. Its 2 front hooves were raised as it prostrated at Lin Feng. Lin Feng faintly smiled. If you guys let master watch a good show, your performance is not bad. All of you get up. Li Chenxi could no longer hear what Xiao Yan and company said after that. There was only a voice constantly echoing in her mind. It's an illusion, right? It must be an illusion, right? It must be an illusion. She stiffly twisted her neck, but realized that the people around her had an expression as though they had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Everyone had a dazed expression. They could not help but squeeze out a few words from between their teeth. It must be an illusion. Chapter 124. Although Li Chenxi and company hoped that everything that happened in front of them was an illusion, the reality was extremely cruel. Lin Feng, who they had always looked down on, was indeed the master of Xiao Yan and company, who had saved their lives. Especially Tiny, who looked like a ferocious primordial beast cub. He grinned as he went forward to hold Lin Feng's hand. Master, is there a reward? This scene made Li Chenxi and company feel despair. They felt like their worldview was collapsing. The group of people wanted to go forward to thank him, but they did not dare. They stood awkwardly in their spots, unable to advance or retreat. They originally wanted to go forward to get closer to Xiao Yan and company, but they did not have the face to do so. Lin Feng could not be bothered with them as he looked at Yang Qing with a smile. Yang Qing smiled bitterly. When he saw Lin Feng look at him, he opened his mouth. You. No, senior, I really never expected. Lin Feng smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Your greatest problem is not that it is strenuous for you to cultivate Dharma spells, but your state of mind. Be more confident and braver. You will discover that the path in front of you is actually very broad. Yang Qing had already calmed down. He sincerely bowed at Lin Feng. Thank you for senior's teachings. I will work hard. Lin Feng looked at the 4 Wind God sect disciples captured by Xiao Yan and company. He smiled and shook his head. With a wave of his hand, the black cloud flag's dark light swept up Fire Crow Young Master, who was still on his last breaths. He still remembers me. Fire Crow Young Master let out a mournful wail. After the repeated changes, he believed that no one was paying attention to him. What a joke. Gao Fan's goal from the beginning was the lunar true water. Surrounding Fire Crow was just a pretense. But Lin Feng's goal from start to finish has always been this Fire Crow. To be precise, it was the information he had regarding Jade Capital Mountain. As for the true lunar water, Lin Feng's side, he wouldn't be like Qin Tao and the others, killing everyone here in order to find the true lunar water. Besides, with his current cultivation, he doesn't have the confidence to subdue the true water. Lin Feng reckoned that if he could advance to the golden elixir period, then relying on the Heaven Cage sigil, he might be able to temporarily seal the true water. I can only forget about it for today. I wonder who will be the lucky one. Lin Feng smiled. Let's go. With a wave of the black cloud flag, Xiao Yin and the others were brought up into the air. He turned his head to look at Yang Qing and said with a smile, "Little friend Yang Qing, let's meet again if fate allows it." Yang Qing bowed again. Yang Qing has benefited a lot from interacting with Senior. I look forward to the day we meet again. He straightened up and watched as Lin Feng's figure turned into a small black dot and disappeared into the horizon. Yang Qing was in a daze. When can I be like seniors for disciples, able to turn the tides and easily defeat strong enemies? That youth riding the Philian beast only has a cultivation level of the 5th level of Qi refinement. Yang Qing sighed and recovered. When he turned around, he was given a fright. A group of people were surrounding him. Dozens of eyes were staring at him. Everyone laughed. Senior Brother Yang, you and that senior seemed to hit it off very well. Senior Brother Yang, you have a good eye. You could tell that senior was extraordinary early on. Everyone spoke one after another. Li Chenxi looked at Yang Qing and said with a smile, Brother Yang, you really hid yourself well this time. Do you know the exact origins of that senior? I have never seen them before. Are they also cultivators from our Kunlun Mountain? Yang Qing was at a loss whether to laugh or cry as he was surrounded by them. He only had a mild and cowardly personality, but he was not stupid. How could he not know what these people were implying? Although Lin Feng did not reveal his cultivation level from the beginning to the end, it was obvious how strong he was to be able to teach Xiao Yin and the other 3 astounding disciples. To be honest, Xiao Yin and company were only at the early stage of foundation establishment, so they did not seem to be much. However, the potential and strength they displayed was truly astounding. They had reached the foundation establishment realm at a young age, and the spells they cultivated were even more powerful. They could easily defeat Qin Tao and company, who were a small realm higher than them. If they continued developing at this speed, who knew what heights they would reach in the future? Furthermore, they would probably reach a height that ordinary people could not reach very soon. Everyone present came from the various small sects of Kunlun Mountain. The elders with the highest cultivation level in their sects were only in the golden elixir period. They could not be compared to the sects that had Yuanying patriarchs. This was also the reason why they had tried to curry favor with Gao Fan. It was not only because Gao Fan had the highest cultivation level and was generous, but also because Gao Fan came from the Wind God sect, which was one of the few large factions in Kunlun Mountain. Now, seeing Yang Qing form a good relationship with the unfathomable Lin Feng, Li Chenxi and company were naturally envious and jealous. Yang Qing found it extremely absurd and said helplessly, I also do not know where that senior came from or what his background is. Li Chenxi was displeased. Brother Yang is still holding a grudge against my previous rudeness. Li Chenxi will apologize to you here. It is just a small matter you do not have to keep in your heart, right? The expressions of the others did not look good. You formed a good relationship with someone, but you do not know how to help your companions. I never expected you, Yang Qing, to be such a selfish person. Forget it. What if it is true? He is using someone as a backer. Someone might forget him in a blink of an eye. That's true. He is just a weakling. How can someone like him? Yang Qing's face flushed red. He was not good with words to begin with, so he was anxious and angry when these people spoke against him. Just as Yang Qing was about to speak, his expression changed slightly as he looked into the distant sky. Although Li Chenxi and the other 2 early-stage foundation establishment cultivators were seriously injured They sensed something at the same time and looked into the horizon. The clouds in the horizon suddenly scattered as a red cloud of fire appeared in everyone's vision. A terrifying aura immediately enveloped the entire area. Golden elixir period. Li Chenxi's brows knitted into a knot. When the fire cloud approached, everyone's expression changed. In the middle of the fire cloud was a giant fire crow that was 20 feet long. Its wingspan was nearly 100 feet. The Fae with the strength of the Golden Elixir period were collectively known as Fae Marshals. And now, it was a Fire Crow Fae Marshal that appeared in front of Yang Qing and company. The Fire Crow Fae Marshal stood in midair as a rolling heat wave blanketed the sky. It pressed down on Yang Qing and company, leaving them breathless. "Where's my race's young lord?" The Fire Crow Fae Marshal suddenly spoke in human language. Its voice was sharp and ear-piercing. "Did you humans injure my family's young lord?" Li Chenxi's eyes darted around as she shouted loudly. It was a white-robed Taoist in feathered robes. "He captured the Fire Crow young lord alive." "What?" The Fire Crow Fae Marshal was enraged. Violent dermic power fluctuations shook the souls of the people below, causing them to fall to the ground. The Fire Crow Fae Marshal's crimson eyes stared at Li Chenxi. "Speak, where are they?" Li Chenxi struggled as she pointed at Yang Qing. "That Taoist has already left. This person knows where they went." "Me? I do not know." Yang Qing was taken aback. Just as he was about to explain, he was interrupted by Li Chenxi. She said loudly to the Fire Crow Fae Marshal, "This matter has nothing to do with us. As long as you bring this person along, you can find the white-robed Taoist." Yang Qing felt a chill in his heart as he looked at the people around him. He realized that everyone was retreating, making him extremely conspicuous. The Fire Crow Fae Marshal in the sky gave a strange cry. "All right, human, bring me there." Just as Li Chenxi heaved a sigh of relief, she heard the Fire Crow Fae Marshal continue. "As for the rest of you, you are useless." A cruel glint flashed in his beady eyes. "If you are useless, then all of you can die." With that said, he flapped his wings, causing endless flames to immediately engulf Li Chenxi and company. "No!" Li Chenxi screamed. She raised her flying sword in an attempt to resist, but it was instantly burned to ashes by the sea of flames. Amidst the Fire Crow Fae Marshal's strange laughter, all the cultivators other than Yang Qing were engulfed by the endless sea of flames. They wailed in pain amidst the intense flames. Yang Qing looked at the scene in front of him in a daze. When he heard the screams of his companions, he felt like his heart was being grasped by someone. His body broke out into a cold sweat as boundless fear engulfed him. "Be brave, be brave, be braver." "Ah!" Yang Qing's fists clenched and relaxed, then relaxed and clenched again. Suddenly, he roared loudly and clasped his hands together, forming a spell. His dermic powers immediately surged like a mountain torrent. It was a secret technique of his sect, the only spell that Yang Qing grasped, the Torrent Curse. The Torrent Curse instantly squeezed out all of Yang Qing's dermic powers. It transformed into a water dragon that pounced at the Fire Crow Fae Marshal. The Fire Crow Fae Marshal did not care at first. A chi condensation cultivator, no matter how much potential was stimulated, would not pose a threat to him. However, the water dragon that Yang Qing produced suddenly flashed with green light. This green light was like the finishing touch, making the water dragon come to life instantly. The Fire Crow Fae Marshal immediately sensed that something was amiss. He gave a strange cry, This is lunar true water." He did not dare to be careless. Flames surged from his body as he clashed with the water dragon. Yang Qing's cultivation level was still too low. The water dragon that he had used all his strength to produce was destroyed by the Fire Crow Fae Marshal in one strike. The immense rebounding force sent Yang Qing flying. He fell heavily into a turbulent stream in the mountains and sank to the bottom, vanishing without a trace. The Fire Crow Fae Marshal did not care about the amount of water in a mere mountain stream. He could evaporate the stream with a raise of his hand. However, After Yangqing entered the water, the entire stream suddenly turned green, flashing with a dark green light. Seeing this, the fire crow Fei Marshal snorted coldly. "You're lucky." In the end, he did not dare to continue chasing. He flapped his wings and flew towards the depths of Kunlun Mountain. "No matter who it is, you're dead for daring to capture my clan's young master. Even without his majesty's help, I will burn you to ashes." Chapter 125. Lin Feng flew in front on the black cloud flag, while Wang Lin and the other three sat on the back of the Fei Lian beast and followed behind. The Fire Raven young master, Gao Fan, and the other Wind God sect disciples were all trapped by the black cloud flag's dark light. Lin Feng himself entered the black cloud flag space and first came before the Fire Raven young master. This demon had been heavily injured by the lunar true water and only managed to survive with the help of a solar true fire seed. It was on the verge of death, and its previous ferocity had completely disappeared. It couldn't even transform into its human form and could only maintain its demon form. A trace of fear appeared in its eyes when it saw Lin Feng. "Who are you? Do you know who I am?" Lin Feng heard the Fire Crow young master's clear threat and immediately laughed involuntarily. "I don't know who you are, but I know that your father is the Fire Crow King." "And then, what do you want to tell me?" The Fire Raven young master choked. He didn't see anything amiss from Lin Feng's calm expression and immediately understood that Lin Feng didn't care about his father. His identity couldn't scare Lin Feng. Realizing this, the Fire Raven young master's aura fell even lower, and he didn't speak. Lin Feng asked, "The habitat of the Fire Ravens is very far to the south of Mount Kunlun. Why have you come to the north of Mount Kunlun in such a large scale?" The Fire Raven young master shrunk his neck. "No, nothing. I want to go out and have fun. My clansmen will accompany me." Lin Feng narrowed his eyes and smiled at him without speaking. Even though Lin Feng didn't say a word, but the Fire Crow young lord suddenly had an extremely bad premonition. Lin Feng looked at the obviously fearful Fire Raven young master and said with a smile, "Mount Yujing." The Fire Raven young master's heart skipped a beat. He felt even more terrified when he looked at Lin Feng's smile. Mount Yujing is located at the northern foot of Mount Kunlun. It's usually hidden in the void turbulence and only appears once every 60 years, Lin Feng said with a smile, "And I heard that you know the exact location of Mount Yujing." The Fire Crow young master remained silent as his beady eyes darted around. Lin Feng guessed what it was thinking and said directly, "I don't mind telling you where I got this information from. I once met a jade tree demon of Longhuan called Long Yi. She was the one who told me about Yujing Mountain." The pupils of the Fire Crow young lord contracted as he exclaimed, "You know Long Night?" Lin Feng's pupils contracted slightly. Long Yi was actually a monster king? In the Yao race, Yao commanders were equivalent to human cultivators in the Golden Elixir period, while Yao kings were equivalent to Yuanying period. When he first met Long Yi, that which was in trouble and fighting with the Celerita's sword sex, Murong Yinran, and the others. The strength she displayed was only at the foundation establishment stage. Because of this, Lin Feng never found out just what level Long Yi was at when she was at her peak. Now that he knows, he instantly felt a great pressure. This pressure didn't just come from Long Yi, it also came from Yin Mingwei. Long Yi was at the Yuanying period. Then, as an old enemy who had always been at odds with her, Yin Mingwei, who had almost died with her, was naturally also at the Yuanying period. Countless thoughts instantly flashed through Lin Feng's mind, but his expression didn't change at all on the surface. He didn't answer the Fire Crow young lord's question, only looking at him indifferently. Seeing Lin Feng's disdainful appearance, the Fire Crow young lord took it as his tacit agreement, instantly feeling uneasy. He was arrogant and hot-tempered, often causing trouble. His father, the Fire Crow King, didn't tell him many things in detail, but as the young clan leader of the Fire Crow young lord, the Fire Crow young lord had heard of many things. For example, his ancestor, the Golden Crow Great Sage, has been at odds with Long Ye's master, the enchantress in recent years. The Fire Crow young lord's small brain had limited capacity, unable to completely analyze what kind of arrangements Long Yi had for revealing information about Jade Capital Mountain to Lin Feng. But the meaning of mixing sand in, sowing discord and drawing the Fire Crow clan to become enemies with Lin Feng is still very clear. Thinking of this, the Fire Crow young lord was instantly a bit anxious, only wanting to inform his father, the Fire Crow King, of Long Ye's intention to harm his clan as soon as possible. I'll tell you the exact location of Jade Capital Mountain, and you'll let me go. How about it? The Fire Crow young lord asked probingly. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Your only choice is to tell me everything you know. I have my own arrangements as to how to deal with you. Anyways, I won't harm your life. He had no intention of killing the Fire Crow young lord in the first place. Putting aside the fact that this idiot's father, the Fire Crow King, had a cultivation equivalent to the human race's Yuanying stage. Even if he got past the Fire Crow King, there was still the Golden Crow Great Sage standing behind the Fire Crow clan. There was no enmity between Lin Feng and the Fire Crow young lord. The Fire Crow young lord had fallen to such a state because Gao Fan had used the lunar true water. However, Lin Feng had to spend quite a bit of time considering whether or not to let this birdman go. He planned to go to Jade Capital Mountain first. The Fire Crow young lord had no choice but to obediently tell Lin Feng the exact location of Jade Capital Mountain. 4,000 li west of here is a high peak at the northern foot of Kunlun Mountain. It's called Soaring Clouds Peak. It's steep and pierces straight into the clouds. The Fire Crow young lord said, listlessly, Jade Capital Mountain is an immortal mountain that floats above the sea of clouds in the sky. It's right above Soaring Clouds Peak. He glanced at Lin Feng and said slowly, but Jade Capital Mountain is surrounded by a layer of purple mist. I've tried for a long time, but I still can't find a way in. Don't blame me if you can't get in either. Lin Feng snorted softly and looked at him from the corner of his eyes. The Fire Crow young lord shrunk his neck. It's true. Otherwise, I'd be enjoying myself in Jade Capital Mountain a long time ago. We'll see when we get there, Lin Feng said faintly. He looked at the Fire Crow young lord and suddenly laughed. One more thing. Hand over that true fire of sunseed of yours. The Fire Crow young lord's expression changed drastically. Don't even think about it. That was his most precious thing, the capital to live a peaceful life and do whatever he wanted. Most of the time, he could do whatever he wanted without relying on his father, the Fire Crow King's name. He could rely on the true fire of sun, one of the 7 great true fires in the world, after the Fire Crow formation activated the true fire of sunseed. His enemies would tremble in fear at the sound of it. Lin Feng smiled. You've tasted the true water of lunar. It's not bad, right? I don't have the true water of lunar, but I can invite you to try the true water of Yellow Springs, which is also one of the 6 great true waters. Lin Feng smiled kindly, his smile as warm as the sun in spring. You've tasted 2 great true waters in one day. You're pretty lucky, aren't you? The Fire Crow young lord's face turned green as he stammered. Are you trying to scare me? For the sake of interrogation, Lin Feng had already taken the Yellow Springs Pearl from Wang Lin. The Yellow Springs Pearl lit up in front of his eyes, and he activated the true water of Yellow Springs within. The Fire Crow young lord immediately wilted before it even touched his body and obediently handed over the true fire of sunseed. After dealing with the Fire Crow young lord, Lin Feng went to where Gao Fan and the others were imprisoned. The 4 of them were all heavily injured, and Gao Fan was the most miserable of them all. His chrysanthemum had been exploded by the true water of lunar and then Wang Lin's finger of annihilation. He was corroded by the aura of death, his entire body turning green and his face ashen. At this moment, he was no longer as handsome and outstanding as he was when they first met. Seeing that Lin Feng had come, Gao Fan's face twitched as he forced a smile that was uglier than crying. Fellow Taoist Lin. No, Senior Lin, we've known each other for a while. We fought against the Fire Crow together. No, I fought against the Fire Crow under Senior's guidance. No matter what, it's fate. There were some misunderstandings before. Gao Fan was blind and offended Senior. Please don't take it to heart, Senior Lin. Lin Feng was a little amused. You're quite thick-skinned. You're quick to change the topic. His expression did not change. He did not look at Gao Fan at all. Instead, he looked at Qin Tao and the others. The three of them trembled. Qin Tao's chubby face revealed a flattering smile. Senior, before he could continue, Lin Feng interrupted him. You're disciples of the Wind God sect? Let me think. I seem to have killed a little worm from the Wind God sect. I remember his name was Gao Long. The hearts of Qin Tao and the others sank to the bottom. Lin Feng's words clearly showed that he did not care about the Wind God sect. If he killed a disciple of the Wind God sect, then so be it. Killing 4 more of them was nothing. Lu Sudong's skinny face trembled. He looked at Qin Tao and Li Xiang. The three of them thought, if you want to live, you have to offer something valuable. Almost at the same time, the three of them pointed at the panic-stricken Gao Fan. Reporting to Senior, this person knows of a hidden treasure left behind by the ancient great demon Kun Peng. The hidden treasure of heaven and earth can only belong to those who are capable. Only a powerful person like Senior is worthy of it. Not only does Gao Fan know the location of the hidden treasure, he also has a spiritual item that can be used to open the hidden treasure. Senior, please understand. Seeing that the three of them had sold him out in an instant, Gao Fan was so furious that his entire body trembled. His eyes rolled back, and he fainted. Lin Feng casually pointed, and a trace of magic power woke Gao Fan up. Seeing Lin Feng looking at him calmly, Gao Fan could only smile bitterly. Chapter 126. With her life in Lin Feng's hands, Gao Fan had no choice but to tell him about the Kun Peng treasure. The Kun Peng treasure was hidden in the Arctic Ice Sea and was frozen by the 10,000 years mysterious ice all year round. Although Gao Fan knew the location and obtained a spiritual item to open the treasure, she could not break the ice. Fortunately, yin and yang alternated. Every few years, the mysterious ice would be eroded by yang qi and become weaker, until the yang qi of the North Sea melted and the yin qi regained the upper hand. The mysterious ice would become solid again. But even the weakened mysterious ice was not that easy to break. To break the 10,000 years mysterious ice, one had to rely on the 7 great true fires, which were the strongest firepower in the world. Or one had to get the 10,000 water commander, the lunar true water, which could control all the ice water in the world, to break the mysterious ice. By coincidence, Gao Fan found out that there was a water vein of the lunar true water hidden in the northern foothills of Mount Kunlun. It just so happened that young Master Fiery Crow was stirring up trouble, so she wanted to use the lunar true water to fight against young Master Fiery Crow's true fire of extreme yang. She wanted to reap the benefits of both the lunar true water and true fire. Even if he only had one, he could break the mysterious ice of the North Sea and explore the Kun Peng treasure. With the Kun Peng treasure and the lunar true water, Gao Fan would really soar to the sky. But now, everything was no longer his. Having the Kun Peng scale taken away by Lin Feng, Gao Fan's heart was continuously bleeding. Lin Feng was very happy. Although he did not get the lunar true water, Xiao Yin had the nether evil flame, which could also break the 10,000 years mysterious ice. Moreover, he had the solar true fire seed of the Fire Crow Young Master. He let the black cloud flag fly to the west and ordered his disciples to follow on the Fail Yin. Then, Lin Feng divided half of his attention to search for the solar true fire seed. Although it was only a fire seed, there was already a shocking heat in it. Lin Feng extended his consciousness into the solar true fire seed. Suddenly, he felt a golden light flashing in front of him, and countless rays of light were stabbing into his brain. The solar true fire divine light is indeed powerful. Lin Feng praised. The power of the 8 diagrams of the Great Way of Heaven operated naturally. All living things were created together, forming a virtual small world in Lin Feng's divine sense. The flickering golden light fused into the small world, turning into a red sun that hung high in the sky. Sunlight shone down on the ground, giving birth to all living things. The vast world contained the golden sunlight, and everything seemed incomparably harmonious. Lin Feng smiled faintly and continued to communicate with the sun true fire essence in the seed. Who dares to covet the seed of the sun real fire that I have bestowed to my descendants? Suddenly, an overbearing and bold voice resounded, shaking Lin Feng's spiritual sense. This roar made Lin Feng's entire mind go blank. A thought flashed across Lin Feng's mind. Is it the Golden Crow Great Sage? Calming himself down, Lin Feng looked carefully and saw a shadow flashing in the golden light. This shadow was extremely hazy and blurry. It did not look like it had a shape, but the power and intent that it exuded was extremely majestic and shocking. Lin Feng immediately understood that this shadow was a divine sense that the Golden Crow Great Sage had left in the solar true fire seed. It could not even be considered clone. It was just a thought, a remnant consciousness. But it was this thought that suppressed Lin Feng to the point where he felt like he couldn't breathe. The shadow was originally blurry, but in the time it took to say that sentence, it had become clearer and clearer, gradually forming a definite shape. It was a shining golden, three-legged golden crow. Its body was surrounded by treasured light, turning into the shape of a sun. It was blazing and majestic. The solar true fire in the solar true fire seed gathered towards this golden crow phantom. Under the convergence of power, the phantom became clearer. Lin Feng frowned. This golden crow great sage was indeed powerful. He was actually using this thought to refine this solar true fire seed into his own clone. The golden crow great sage must have passed down more than one solar true fire seed to his descendants. In order to make it easier for his descendants to use it, the golden crow great sage would definitely erase his dermic power and divine sense imprint, but he would leave a remnant thought in each solar true fire seed. As long as an outsider obtained a solar true fire seed and attempted to refine it, the golden crow great sage would immediately sense it. He would not need to descend with his real body or use an existing incarnation. He could directly refine the solar true fire seed into a clone and kill the enemy. Although there was not much solar true fire in the seed, and it was only a fire seed, what kind of divine powers did the golden crow great sage have? As long as the seed was refined into a clone, the clone would immediately have extremely powerful combat power. At least, it was not something that the current Lin Feng could contend with. However, although Lin Feng was shocked, he did not panic. After understanding the principle, he calmed down, just in time for me to test out a new Dharma spell. Lin Feng smiled as he watched the golden crow phantom gradually take shape. He carefully felt the changes in power within it. This would be a very good reference for him when he refined the solar true fire seed later. Seeing that the golden crow phantom was about to take shape, Lin Feng stretched out a hand. His fingers formed a blade, and he waved it lightly in the air. No matter who you are, if you dare to touch the solar true fire seed that I have passed down to my descendants, only death awaits you. A domineering voice came from the golden crow phantom. The sound wave was fused with a vast amount of dermic power and was almost tangible. Ripples visible to the naked eye spread out in all directions. But as Lin Feng waved his hand in the air and made a slash, the voice suddenly exclaimed in surprise. Who are you? How can you cut off the connection between me and the solar true fire? Before the golden crow phantom truly took shape, it could only sense the solar true fire. It could not see the outside world clearly. Just as the phantom was about to take shape and refine the solar true fire seed into a clone, the other party suddenly realized that the connection between it and the solar true fire seed had been strangely cut off. Who are you? The golden crow sage's voice calmed down when the connection with the solar true fire seed was cut off. However, Lin Feng could feel the anger under the calmness. It was like a super volcano that was about to erupt. However, This volcano could not erupt to Lin Feng for the time being. Even if the Golden Crow Sage was furious, it would not be easy for him to descend to Earth with his true body after cutting off the connection between him and the solar true fire seed. He could also personally come to Kunlun Mountain to search for Lin Feng. However, as a great sage of the demon race, his every move was being watched. The Golden Crow Sage coming to Kunlun Mountain, which was the traditional territory of the human race, and a few fire crows coming to cause trouble were two completely different concepts. If he dared to come, he would definitely be surrounded and intercepted by powerful human experts of the same level. It was also because of this that the Golden Crow Sage was especially angry. Looking at the Golden Crow phantom that was gradually dissipating and returning to the true fire of the sun, Lin Feng pursed his lips. What a stupid question. Do you think I can tell you? Although it was a false alarm, Lin Feng was still secretly vigilant. If not for the new Dharma spell, the Golden Crow Sage might have really succeeded. This Dharma spell, how should I put it? It still needs to be perfected. It's a pity that the Divine Power Analyzer can't be used on the Dharma spell that I created. Lin Feng sighed and returned his attention to the true fire seed. After eliminating the hidden danger and getting inspiration from the Golden Crow Sage's method of refining the true fire seed, it was much easier for Lin Feng to refine the solar true fire seed. Divine Power Analyzer, activate. Lin Feng pulled out the ability analyzer from the system tools and very quickly analyzed the ability contained within the fire seed, the various mysteries of the true sun fire god ray. Lin Feng could quickly master the divine power analyzed by the Divine Power Analyzer. Just mastering the solar true fire divine light isn't enough. It would be great if I could deduce the true sun fire method. Lin Feng licked his lips regretfully. It's easy to comprehend divine power, but it's almost impossible to reverse deduce a Dharma spell from divine power. This is the true sun fire? Is it really the true sun fire? My feeling was right. Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. Lin Feng was stunned. He took out a ring, and the little Taodai Tuntin's anxious voice came from it. What the hell are you doing now? Lin Feng's divine power entered the ring and helplessly looked at Tuntin, who was pouncing on the light prison's bars with green eyes. Tuntin said loudly, I vaguely felt the aura of the true sun fire earlier, but I wasn't sure. Now that I'm closer, I'm sure it's the true sun fire. Lin Feng grinned. So what if I am? Even if it's the true sun fire, it's mine. Tuntin slapped the bars, its face filled with desire. Give it to me, give it to me. I beg you, give me the true sun fire seed. Lin Feng's heart shook. Tuntin had always been a glutton, but it wasn't picky about food. This was the first time it had been so desperate for something that it didn't hesitate to lower its head to Lin Feng. Why do you want the true sun fire so badly? Chapter 127. Why do you want to obtain the true sun fire? Lin Feng looked at Tuntin and slowly asked. Tuntin's expression instantly became much more serious as it said word by word. I want revenge. Lin Feng understood. The enemy that destroyed your body and spirit, leaving only a wisp of your soul. Not exactly. Tuntin's face was filled with seriousness. It's to avenge the humiliation my parents suffered. Lin Feng scratched his head. Oh, may I ask who your parents are? Tuntin adjusted its clothes and answered with respect. My father is the great Taotai saint of the demon clan, and my mother is the purple wind Taotai demon king of the Taotai clan. As expected, Lin Feng nodded. Tuntin only had a wisp of her soul left, yet she could still swallow the attack of a golden elixir period cultivator without dying. It was easy to imagine how powerful she was when she was at her peak. In particular, her age was very young compared to her race. To be able to give birth to such a daughter, her parents were definitely not ordinary people. However, even such parents had suffered such humiliation that their daughter would never forget to take revenge, even though she was only left with a strand of her soul. Just what kind of person was Tuntin's enemy? I swear I will not enter reincarnation if I don't get my revenge, Tuntin said in an extremely serious tone. Lin Feng yawned. You can do it. Tuntin was extremely displeased. What kind of attitude is that? Sorry. Lin Feng waved his hand insincerely. It was not that he wanted to be rude in front of others, but Tuntin's story was too old, and he was not interested in it. Tuntin snorted, and after a long while, its attitude softened. Give me the true sunfire seed. Lin Feng crossed his arms in front of his chest and indifferently said, You need the true sunfire seed for revenge. Tuntin nodded vigorously. But why should I give it to you? Those are your parents, not mine. What does your hatred have to do with me? Lin Feng pursed his lips. Strictly speaking, our relationship isn't very harmonious. Tuntin was speechless. She knew in her heart that if Lin Feng had not trapped her with a heaven cage sigil, she would have devoured Lin Feng's magic power. No matter how thick Tuntin's skin was, it would feel guilty if it denied something so obvious. After pondering for a moment, Tuntin seemed to make up his mind. He looked at Lin Feng and earnestly said, As long as you give me the true sunfire seed, I will do anything you want me to. When a cute little loli said this, it was originally a very fanciful thing. Unfortunately, Lin Feng wasn't a lolicon. He knew that the cute loli in front of him wasn't human at all. Tell me first, who is your enemy? Lin Feng asked. A look of extreme hatred immediately emerged on Tuntin's little face. Even if I reincarnate, I won't forget the humiliation she brought me. Hufun of Qingqiu Mountain's Heavenly Fox clan. I will never forget her. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows. Is she very strong? Tuntin snorted disdainfully. Strong my ass. She's just a fox that knows some bewitching techniques. In terms of magic power and cultivation, she's only at the level of a demon general. Oh, Lin Feng found it a little strange. The so-called level of a demon general was actually equivalent to the level of human foundation establishment stage cultivators. In other words, the strongest was the Fire Crow Young Master. With such strength, let alone Tuntin's father, the Taotai Sage, or his mother, the Purple Wind Taotai Demon King, even Tuntin himself could kill Hufun with the flick of a finger. If it swallowed her, it wouldn't even need to spit out her bones. As if understanding Lin Feng's thoughts, Tuntin pursed its lips. That slut is doted on by her clan's old ancestor, and she hides in Qingqiu Mountain all day long. It's very difficult to kill her. Lin Feng asked, Who's her clan's old ancestor? The nine-tailed great sage. Tuntin answered gloomily. The Heavenly Fox clan's old ancestor. Although the nine-tailed great sage isn't known for her incisiveness in fights of magic, she still has many remarkable techniques. Even my father can't easily deal with her. If it's a life-and-death battle, my father has a higher chance of winning, but it's easy for other enemies to take advantage of him. After listening to Tuntin's introduction, Lin Feng had a general understanding of the demon race's world. The great Heaven Yuan world was like the two poles of yin and yang, divided into two. One was the human race's divine land, and the demon race's vast infinite land. Between the two worlds, there were many passageways, and around these two worlds existed many otherworldly spaces that together formed the great Heaven Yuan world. The top great demons of the demon race were respectfully called great saints, and many of them were great demons that had run amok in ancient times. The 10 most famous great demons were collectively known as the 10 saints of the demon race. However, apart from these 10 saints, there are also many hidden great saints of the demon race. Below the great saint were the various demon kings. There were strong and weak demon kings, and they could not be lumped together. The Taotai great sage, the nine-tailed great sage, and the golden crow great sage, who had almost met Lin Feng, as well as that demoness Long Ye's master, the enchantress, were all figures of the 10 saints of the demon race. The enchantress is the most mysterious of the 10 saints, and no one knows her background, Tuntin said. But no one dares to question her strength, and even my father says he can't see through her. It's no wonder that many demons say she's the first among the 10 saints. Lin Feng nodded. According to Tuntin, the demon technique that the enchantress cultivated was the Book of the Primordial Demon. The supreme Tao technique of the demon race was called the Heavenly Demon Scripture. Its origin was unknown, but it was regarded as a sacred scripture by the demon race and deeply feared by the human race. The Heavenly Demon Scripture was divided into 10 volumes, of which the first volume had been lost, and the Enchantress's Book of the Primordial Demon was ranked second among the 10 volumes of the Heavenly Demon Scripture. It was a most profound demon technique of the Heavenly Demon Scripture that was still circulating. It was precisely because Long Yi cultivated the Book of the Primordial Demon that she could compete with Yin Mingyue, who cultivated the mysteries of the great Tao of Taishu. Lin Feng asked a great saint who had the greatest relationship with him, Golden Crow Great Sage, "How much do you know?" Tuntin was previously sealed in the ring by Lin Feng with the Heaven Cage curse, and had very little information about the outside world. If the true sun fire had not become her obsession, she would not have noticed it just now. Upon hearing Lin Feng's question, Tuntin revealed a troubled expression. "Don't tell me you snatched this true fire seed from the Golden Crow Great Sage? That old Golden Crow is the most tyrannical and unreasonable. I want to ask him for a few true fire seeds back then, but he chased me out." Lin Feng chuckled, thinking that you went to his door to ask for his special skill. "The fact that I didn't kill you is already giving face to your old man, the Taodai Great Sage. Where's the Fire Crow King?" Lin Feng changed the question. Tuntin clearly had no fear towards the Fire Crow King, curling its lips, a hot-tempered old brat. If not for the Golden Crow Great Sage's protection, he would have been killed long ago. The flaming mountain where the fire crows gathered was a passageway between Tianhuang mainland and the vast land of the Divine Continent. Its specific location was south of Kunlun Mountain, so there were often fire crows that entered the human world to cause trouble. There were also human cultivators that entered the flaming mountain to train, search for treasures, and kill fire crows. The patriarch of the fire crow race, the Fire Crow King, was a legitimate descendant of the Golden Crow Great Sage. Although his bloodline was no longer pure, he cultivated the Golden Crow Great Sage's True Sun Fire method. It was said that he had already cultivated the True Sun Fire, unlike the Fire Crow Young Master who used the Golden Crow Great Sage's fire seed. Tuntin had once set his sights on the Fire Crow King, but had not succeeded. Lin Feng had more or less obtained the information he needed, but was even more puzzled by Tuntin's matter. Your enemy is Hu Fun, and her backer is the nine-tailed Great Sage. But what does this have to do with the true sun fire? Is the Sky Fox race afraid of fire? Tuntin shook its head vigorously. Of course not. Although the Sky Fox fire is not one of the 7 great true fires, it is still a famous spirit fire. I want the true sun fire to deal with the mysterious underworld race's Blackwater mysterious underworld race. Just like how the Golden Crow controls the true sun fire, the mysterious underworld race can naturally control one of the 6 great true waters, the extremely cold, mysterious underworld true water. Tuntin gritted its teeth. Back then, it was the Blackwater mysterious underworld race that protected that vixen, Hu Fun, and beat me to this state. Lin Feng nodded. Oh, then you should indeed seek revenge from him. But what does this have to do with the humiliation your parents suffered? Tuntin rolled its eyes at him. The Blackwater mysterious underworld would rather have that little vixen, Hu Fun, than marry me. I was also a demon king back then. Yet, I couldn't even beat a demon general when it came to males. What a joke. This matter has been made known to the entire vast Tianhuang mainland. My parents have been utterly humiliated. Isn't this a great humiliation? Tuntin glared hatefully at Lin Feng. You males are all bad things. Lin Feng was speechless as he looked at her. Damn it. After all this time, she lost when it came to men? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.